Colossal, colossal, colossal. A big, big cave. Hello, Johnny. Hello, Sharky.
Hey, Cass.
Hello.
Welcome, one and all. Welcome to the Bad Game Hall of Fame. Welcome to Colossal Cave. This is the show in which we play Colossal Cave, the 2023 remake of what is widely regarded to be the original text adventure game known colloquially as Colossal Cave Adventure. Even though it was never actually designated as such back in the day, it's a whole thing. There's a whole history section tonight, folks. Let's just get this out of the way. We're going long, and it's entirely due to talking at the top of the show about some very, very early games history, and about one of the key figures in the mid to late 80s into the 90s, one Roberta Williams, whose studio Cygnus Entertainment is responsible for this here remake. Let's get the release info out of the way real quick. This game was released January 19th, 2023, worldwide, across the PC, Mac, Linux, et al., the MetaQuest 2 VR headset, the Nintendo Switch, and the PlayStation 5. And then there's a subsequent release of a global VR edition. That's the VR version that goes up on Steam, that goes up for non-MetaQuest platforms on June 21st, 2023. As mentioned, developed and published by Cygnus Entertainment, which is the brainchild of Roberta and Ken Williams, previously of Sierra Online, makers of fine adventure games. One more word of warning, just real early before we even get to the history section, that, how do I best put this? You will walk away from this hating Roberta Williams, and probably Ken too. If there's any takeaway from the history section tonight, it is that sacred cows in the industry, they don't pass the smell test sometimes. When you really go back and dig through the documents, you find some stuff that is highly embarrassing for these public figures, and that it's very hard to feel bad for them when they go to sleep on giant piles of money. So, prepare yourselves accordingly for that. And prepare yourselves for a lot of history. I think it's a great history section tonight. I don't know about the game. I'm less confident about the game and showing
People
that
voted
off.
for it, though.
People did vote for it. That is the caveat here, because this is one of our patron-voted playthroughs. Folk over on the Discord and the Patreon voted for this one, our financial supporters and backers et al. We put up a list of reprehensible remakes, and this is the one that won, surprising all of us, I think.
Absolutely.
I don't think any of us expected this one to win, and yet it did, and I realize now it's because
Honestly, yeah.
people love the history sections. It's as much as I rush. I stayed up all night in a day writing this one to make sure I got it right, double checking it to make sure that I was right to be as bitter and salty and mean-spirited as I am in parts of it. But yeah, I double checked it. It's right. Yeah, I'm correct. I am, in fact, right to be that way, to be messy about it. And I really do feel that the audience will be on our side once they hear the words from the Queen of Adventure Games' lips. But before we get into any of that, I want to ask the both of you here at the top of the show, what is your familiarity with classic text adventure games?
Now see, I thought you were going to ask what's my familiarity with Colossal Cave Adventure, which would be, the answer to that is, by reputation. I never played it, but I'm very familiar with the fact that it did spawn the likes of a lot of very important follow-ups, including Zork, maybe most importantly, which is kind of my big touchstone with classic text adventure, is bashing my head against Zork over and over again, and really never understanding what I was doing. Never really getting much further past that fucking thief that tries to steal your shit when you go into the cave for the first time.
I thought you were going to say the mailbox, and I would have been like, oh, that's rough. Not getting much further past the mailbox is a little rough for Zork, but no. You Clearly, you made it past that into the actual
yes.
game.
Like, honestly, folks, if you want to play Zork Grand Inquisitor. That game's great. But that's a visual adventure. That is not a text adventure. There was a period of time, particularly in my teenage years, where I was really into these. Oh, I wish I could remember the name of them. I'm sure someone in chat might know. But there were these interactive fiction contests held yearly by some group. Might have just been like the IF group or something like that. And you would get really experimental text adventures out of that. And I always really liked that, like those. Like there was one where like it was a whole bunch of different paths, but you only made one choice at the start, and that was it. It was just a huge text parser for like a huge dictionary for anything you could put in. There was one I remember where there was a you could go north, south, east, or west to the rooms. But when you were in those rooms, you could only use commands that started with the first letter of that room. So if you were in north, you could only use the letter N for the start of any word you were using to do things in there, including leaving south. You had to find a way to leave south using a word that started with N.
Say nope, and that'll spin you around 180 degrees, send you in the other direction.
Yeah, that would be a good idea, actually. But no, so I enjoy a text adventure from time to time, and I am well aware that Colossal Cave Adventure was a cornerstone of a lot of that.
Very good, Johnny.
So that's something I know less about. I've definitely dabbled and tried some text adventures. I played Dungeon Man. I'll get E-Flask one of these days, but I think it's probably a bit too archaic of a design for me to get into. Now, point and clicks, I really like. I get into a lot of those. That's
then you're in
my
luck tonight.
speed. Yeah. But yeah. So I only know little bits by reputation. I know Zork, but I don't really know much about this cave and its colossalness. So I'm looking forward to finding out.
Very good. For my part,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I liked choose your own adventure books. Goosebumps had some fun ones that I seem to recall.
Yeah, I have those.
And just that style of game. There's been some fun ones on phone. There's a little choose your own adventure game for phones by the name of Tin Star. That is a sheriff simulation with a lot of variables and stat building and stuff, and it's just a ton of fun. One of my favorite games, weirdly enough. Just past many an hour playing that. But as far as like the classics of text adventure, I kind of need visuals. My brain kind of needs a graphic on screen to help orient and guide me. Having to exist entirely in the text parser is like, it's just a bridge too far for me, I think. And then even getting into the graphic adventures where they'll, draw the graphics on screen one scan line at a time, or, even building up to the classic adventure games, your Sierras, your LucasArts, etc. I don't know, I'm just not much of an adventure gamer, truth be told. I was certainly around for some of the heyday events. I liked Sam and Max well enough, and that was entirely on the strength of the characters and nothing to do with the gameplay, really. So, I don't know. I can appreciate them in an abstract as a part of history, and I hope that folk will appreciate the work I put into writing this history tonight.
And one last question about our collective familiarity with text adventures. Who here has played Zork by way of Call of Duty Black Ops?
I loaded it up in Black Ops and was like, oh, that's neat. And then I closed it out and did not proceed.
I played it a little bit. And,
I played a little bit.
Yeah, and managed to get it working with my Xbox One controller keyboard thing that plugs into the bottom. It somehow works through Xbox One backwards compatibility. So I've played it in Call of Duty Black Ops with a keyboard. And I'm
the way it
one
was
of the only
meant
people who's done
to
that.
be played.
Yeah.
Yes.
The way it was meant to be played, yes. Anyway, moving on.
Very good, yes. So now we've established that. It's time we establish one more thing before we get into the history, before we get into the gameplay. And that is to dive deep into that cave in search of a rare, the elusive, Sharky Stream Snack. I stake my claim on this.
So it's my stream snack, so I'm actually the one eating it. Well, tonight's stream snack is Alani Nu Strawberry Sunset. No, I'm sorry, Strawberry Sunrise. Different time of day, even though it is setting outside. And our snack is Domino's Thin Crust Pizza. They had an offer for any size pizza with any toppings for $9.99, and I'm like, oh, you shouldn't have. So I didn't go as overboard as I could have. So this is a Alfredo sauce, chicken, bacon, feta, onion pizza, which I love these. This is like one of my favorite combinations of toppings on a pizza. And Domino's does an okay one of these. I'll be honest, if I'm getting Domino's, it's probably something like this, because when we get into the more traditional toppings in the tomato sauce, I don't think Domino's does it great.
No, they certainly don't. I'd
TBH.
rather do Little Caesars, and they also charge like $5.99 for a pizza. At this point, you can get like 3 pizzas for like $16, $18, and this is like, damn, this is living.
I'd rather do a Little Caesars too, but like, A, this deal was too good, and B, I am so goddamn tired. I was not going to drive to Little Caesars, and I don't trust like how Little Caesars does their DoorDash, where they don't actually do it from my local Little Caesars. They go from across the river. So I would be waiting on the pizza for the next hour if I did that. So I'm glad I got my pizza now. But Kess, what do you have tonight?
Oh, you know me. You know the new me. Drinking that Monster Juice Voodoo Grape, having switched over from the Ultraviolet for as long as this is available, for as long as supplies last.
I didn't see anything online implying that this was a temporary flavor, like a seasonal thing. So I don't know. You might be in luck. This might be something they hold on to.
God willing. Johnny, how about you?
Well, in theme with adventure games, I've gone for 2 choices, 2 drinks here. I've got my iced coffee vanilla latte and a new hot chocolate. This is Milfresh chocolate coconut hot chocolate. The Bounty one I had was good. Let me try this one.
Coconut hot chocolate. That sounds real good.
It's nice, but I don't get much coconut from it. But still very good. Only a
Do you
little
help-
like aftertaste.
Okay, there's at least that. I mean, totally.
It's now
Oh.
like more stronger. Interesting.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, on the back end, I guess. They used to be Starbucks, back when I used to go to Starbucks. Used to have this thing in the summer where it was like the toasted coconut frappuccino that was like loaded with coconut flavor and with like shaved toasted coconut on the top. It was so goddamn good.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
they stopped, and they never did it again. It was around the same time that Smoothie King stopped offering coconut smoothies too. And I started to think, are we not doing coconut anymore? We've decided as a society that we're not doing coconuts in things, because this is not a world I want to live in.
Yeah, that's messed up.
But it's good to see coconut making the comeback. I think I've seen coffee places again putting coconut in their stuff.
Yeah.
But that'll be for another
Nice.
night. For now, that will do it for Turkey
Hang on.
Stream Stack. Oh, wait. Oh.
Yeah. I also have a choice of food.
Go on.
I have these Fridge Rager chicken fins, so as soon as I open these, the pets are gonna hound me. And then I've got some mini M&Ms that I might go into, like M&Ms, but they're small, so you less mouth strain when you eat them.
All right, just keep your cylinder away from the little tube that it comes with. And I think that will do it for Turkey Stream Stack.
Very good. Well, with that, I'm kind of dreading just how long this is going to go. I told you I wrote a history section, and by God, I wrote a history section for this one.
I bought an entire pizza, so.
Oh,
like
that's
someone's
great.
trying to one up my recent history section.
With that, let us cut away to the main stage. Show us on the screen. I want to see our beautiful faces lighting up in reaction to this incredible writing that I've provided to you, the audience at home. First things first, a couple of pertinent links that I want to just get out of the way at the top here. One of the best resources on the internet for studying the original Colossal Cave adventure is rickadams.org/adventure, the Colossal Cave Adventure page. Links posting in chat and will be in the description over on YouTube. Just everything you wanted to know about the original Colossal Cave Adventure. Community forum. I don't know how active that is, how much more needs to be said about Colossal Cave Adventure that hasn't already been said in 2026, but it's there. And we have definitely cribbed some notes on Colossal Cave Adventure from that page. Additionally, for an even more exhaustive look into Colossal Cave Adventure, there is Dennis G. Jers's examination of Colossal Cave Adventure's original development and code on behalf of Digital Humans Quarterly. This is an archived link, but this is an exhaustive exploration of the origins of Colossal Cave Adventure, the original, as well as diving deep into its code, how it ticks, etc., etc., etc. And of course, there will be more links as they are relevant to our reading here. And with that, we begin our spelunking journey. Before there was Doom, Ultima, Rogue, or even Zork, there was adventure. So, in 1972, one William Crowther and his wife Patricia were working for Bolt, Bernick, and Newman in Boston, also known as BBN. Will was developing the assembly language program for the original routers used in creating the ARPANET, the foundations of the modern-day internet. In their spare time, the Crowthers, both avid cavers, explored and mapped portions of the Mammoth and Flint Ridge cave systems in Kentucky, recognized as being the longest cave system in the world, on behalf of the Cave Research Foundation. In fact, it was Patricia who is credited as being the first to step through a small connecting tunnel, colloquially known as the tight spot, between the Mammoth and Flint Ridge caves and confirming a long-held theory that the two caves were, in fact, connected. There's a quote somewhere on the Rick Adams Adventure page. They have some cutesy little sidebar text descriptions that aren't attributed to anything, but it reads, Patricia, being the thinnest member of the party, went through first. "Ooh, it's very tight," she called, and then saw the passage opening up into a much larger space. She happily added, "But we have cave." In addition to caving, the pair also went on to produce vector map surveys of the caves in question. They transcribed the survey data of the cave from muddy little books, as they would so cutesily put it, into a teleprinter terminal in their house, including caverns with colorful names like the Hall of the Mountain King and the Two-Pit Room. This data was then fed into a program developed by the pair that generated plotting commands onto punched tape, thereby generating some of the earliest computer-drawn maps of caves. Other activities that Will enjoyed were rock climbing and a regular game of Dungeons and Dragons, because of course, fucking nerds, in which Crowther took on the persona of Willie the Thief among a close circle of friends. One of those friends, incidentally, would be David Lebling, later co-founder of Infocom. I wonder if they'll come up later. And also, you know I gotta call him Willie for the rest of this article. I'm sorry, William. I'm sorry, Will, but you're Willie from here on out. You're Willie the Thief, baby. So, just bear that in mind. Unfortunately, the Crowthers' marriage ended in 1975. Willie stopped caving with the Cave Research Foundation shortly thereafter. Driven by what he later described as an increase in spare time, combined with missing his two daughters, he began working on a text-based game in the Fortran programming language on BBN's PDP-10 mainframe, interfacing with it through his teletype printer, that they could play, them being his two daughters. He combined his memories and maps of the Mammoth Cave system, particularly a 1975 map of the bed quilt area of the caves, including the, quote, Colossal Cavern, with elements of the Dungeons & Dragons campaigns that he had played with his friends, in order to design a game around exploring a cave for treasure. And so, Willie wrote a computer simulation based on the maps for that PDP-10, and this first version of what would go on to be known as Adventure, Colossal Cave Adventure et al., was full of just caver jargon. His original version of it had, notation that you would see on cave maps, letter and number stuff that you'd have to use to navigate, and if you weren't, already intimately familiar with the caves, it would not help you at all. That, and he would also describe rooms in the caves based on features he remembered. So, we mentioned earlier, the Hall of the Mountain King. So maybe there was some rock formation that looked vaguely like a Mountain King. One of those, like, you had to have been there in the cave to fully appreciate what he was trying to do, and that wasn't going to be everybody. Probably wasn't even his daughters, who would have been too young to have gone caving. If he was a responsible father, that is. If he took his, like, 6-year-old's daughters caving, that's, I don't know about that. I don't think he did. I'm not accusing him of such.
You take him to the kiddie cave, which is just like a hole dug in the sand, and you have him sit there and go like, wow, look at that cave. Ooh.
You make do with the tools you got. Anyway, Willie eventually realized that he wanted the game to actually be accessible and, like, not completely intimidating to non-technical players, like his children, who he was ostensibly developing the game for. And so he developed a natural language input system to control the game. So that would be a, quote, thing that gave you the illusion anyway, that you typed in English commands and it did what you said. Will reflects on his memories of developing the game in the 1983 book Genesis 2, Creation and Recreation with Computers, written by Dale Peterson. And to quote Willie...
All right, Mr. Crowther, if you happen to be watching this, I do apologize, but Cass, my co-host, has specifically told me to do this voice.
Mm-hmm.
I had been involved in a non-computer role-playing game called Dungeons & Dragons at the time, and also I'd been actively exploring caves, Mammoth Cave in Kentucky in particular. Suddenly I got involved in a divorce, and that left me a bit pulled apart in various ways. In particular, I was missing my kids. Also, the caving had stopped because they had become awkward. So I decided I would fool around and write a program that was a recreation and fantasy of my caving, and also would be a game for the kids, and perhaps some aspects of the Dungeons & Dragons that I'd been playing. My idea was it would be a computer game that would not be intimidating to non-computer people, and it was one of the reasons why I made it so that the player directs the game with natural language input instead of more standardized commands. My kids thought it was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Sharky. He's old now. Obviously, he was probably.
I was old then too.
He was old at heart.
I'm like a Benjamin Button, except I was born old and I'll die old. They called me Gary Oldman for a long time, but it turns out that name's taken, so I called him Willie.
Ah, shit. Well, we move along to the best image I could find of the original adventure running on some maybe era-appropriate hardware. I can tell it's the original adventure because of the text on screen. Anyway, the initial version of the game that would eventually come to be known as Colossal Cave Adventure was about 700 lines of code, plus another 700 lines of data such as descriptions for the 66 rooms contained within, navigational messages, 193 vocabulary words, and miscellaneous messages contained within. Once the game was complete in early 1976, Willie went and showed it off to his coworkers at BBN for feedback, and then considered his work on the game finished, leaving the compiled game on the mainframe before taking a month off for vacation. It was during this vacation that others found the game, and it was distributed widely across the network to computers at other companies and universities, which surprised Willie on his return. The game did not have an explicit title in it, simply stating "Welcome to Adventure" as part of the opening message, and also having the file name of Advent, so you would type in run Advent to run it on your computer. It would just
Now remember, you're only allowed to play one level per day for 24 days. And if you beat a level, you get a piece of chocolate.
That's a better reward system than we get. That's a better reward loop than we get in modern games, okay? I'd take the chocolate. I would take the Werther original or whatever the fuck. So anyway, the game was interchangeably referred to as both Adventure and Advent for this reason that did not have a formalized name. Also, most computer terminals at the time didn't have monitors, so players would instead play the game over teleprinters connected to the mainframe, which would straight up be a typewriter-esque device that would print out each line that the computer sent it. So you'd be wasting reams of paper trying to navigate the Colossal Cave.
Okay, what's a better feature? The one we're heading towards where like DLSS 5 wastes like a bunch of like water and like air pollution, or if we go back to wasting so much paper anytime you want to play
I
Resident
forget
Evil.
who did it. Someone played like Half-Life or something via printer recently.
Ugh.
That's
Show me that later.
I'll look into it. I'll look into it. Yeah.
I'm quoting again from that Digital Humanities article. Again, great article, where as part of the author's research, he interviewed one. Well, this guy goes by the name of Crayley. He refuses to give his first name. Or his last name for that matter. He just goes by the alias Crayley. It's pretty easy to solve for that this guy is Mike Crayley, so he is actually using his last name. I don't know why he goes by the shorthand credit in that. But yeah, Mike Crayley, who was a BBN co-worker and a party member in the Office D&D campaign, along with Willie. He provides a bit of retrospect. And pretty effectively, summates what Willie's priorities were, and the fact that when Willie was done with his version of the game, he pretty much just washed his hands of it immediately. So I'm going to read for Crayley, Mike Crayley here. One day, a few of us wandered into Crowther's office so he could show off his program. It was very crude in many respects. Will was always parsimonious of memory. Is that how you pronounce that word? Parsimonious? Use real words, man. Good enough. Parsimonious of memory, but surprisingly sophisticated. We all had a blast playing it, offering suggestions, finding bugs, and so forth. Will was very proud, or more accurately amused, of how well he could fool people into thinking that there was some very complex AI behind the game. Once it was working, though, Will wasn't very interested in perfecting or expanding it. If you recall, William Crowther, in his primary work at BBN, at this point in time, modern day, known as Raytheon BBN, to give you an idea of just how big they would ultimately grow to become. But Willie's work was primarily in developing ARPANET, as mentioned earlier, and as mentioned, his contributions to the project, specifically the packet switching protocol, which enabled the efficient transfer of data over networks, helped to create the internet as we know it today. Really important stuff here. Eventually, Willie leaves BBN to go work for Xerox from 1976 to 1983, during which time he met and married Nancy Sanders Burns, an avid rock climber herself, who'd inspire William to become active in a mountain club and go on to teach others the art of rock climbing. In 1983, he leaves Xerox to go back to BBN. He ends up staying with the company, surviving a transitionary period in the 90s where Cisco Systems buys the part of BBN where Crowther was working. Continues to work for Cisco in that capacity until his retirement in 1997, and has largely seemed to stay off the public radar in the years since. He did his bit, he made his contributions, probably got paid tons for being a part of ARPANET, and is happily retired. He kept up the rock climbing thing for a while, well into the 2010s, well into his 60s and 70s. So I guess that's fairly impressive. But yeah, just leave the old man in peace.
I've been working on ARPANET too. I'm going to make the sequel to the internet.
It's about
Finally.
damn time. So, Willie's game was passed from friend to friend during the early days of computing and the internet. As legend goes, inspired players would access others' computers across universities and corporations wherever computers were hosted. They would secretly install Adventure without asking for permission, and then quietly move on once the deed was done, in effect allowing the game to appear as if by magic on computers, leaning into its fantastical theming and inherent sense of mystery. There's a quote.
When is it nice when, nowadays, that would be creepypasta shit. And it
was
used to be
quaint back then.
magic.
It
Yeah, it
used
used to be quaint and magical and nice.
Fantastical.
I found Sonic.exe on my computer. How wonderful.
A new game for me to
Charming.
play. What a mystery. There's a quote that states that it's estimated that Adventure set the entire computer industry back 2 weeks, end quote, as everyone involved in the early development of the computer technology industry were too preoccupied playing and solving the game to focus on their work. Among those who found the game at this stage were 2 Stanford graduate students, Don Woods and John Gilbert. According to Gilbert, someone, possibly their instructor Bob Floyd, mentioned Adventure in their CS204 class, a programming and problem-solving seminar, after which Gilbert and Woods, quote, stayed up all night at the AI lab playing the game and mapping the cave, including scanning the binary code for character strings in order to guess what the possibilities were. It was Don Woods, pictured here, who took the additional leap in attempting to contact William Crowther, and cleverly did so by sending an email to, quote, Crowther at sitename, where sitename stood as a wildcard for every computer then on the internet. Only a mere handful of websites existing at the time, so it wasn't that exhaustive a list. So this is how he's able to get in contact with Willie. After corresponding with him and getting his blessings, Don works on greatly expanding the program. After contacting Willie and requesting the source code, Don increases Adventure's size, complexity, and polish. But perhaps the 2 most important additions were that of Don's written prose, expanding on the descriptions of the rooms, adding new puzzles and hazards, and altogether giving a proper sense of the fantastical to the game, as well as the addition of a 350-point scoring system to the game, challenging the player to replay and fully complete the game by achieving the maximum score in the process. You know, prior to this, in the original version of Adventure, you can make it from beginning to end. There were scoring opportunities along the way, 5 pieces of treasure to collect. But ultimately, you know, the completion was satisfaction in and of itself. Completing the game was completing the game. The scoring system adds an extra incentive to replay it and to, like, map out the perfect route that gets you to that maximum score. The differences in design philosophy between Don and Willie in their versions of Adventure are perhaps most eloquently summated by William Mann, a caving compatriot of Willie who played both versions when they were developed. I believe this quote is also from that DHQ article. To quote William Mann, Crowther was interested in using the cave as a setting for a game, with magic, puzzles, conflict, and humor. Woods carried that forward, but without the feel for being in an actual cave, and with the need to limit the use of the machine to off hours, he mostly added policy, puzzles, and humor. Further cribbing from the original author of the DHQ article, Crowther supplied the original text parser and established the basic principles of gameplay, leaving Woods free to concentrate on expansion, creative variation, and real-world resource management, such as a system for resuming a suspended game and a password-protected method of restricting access to the game during working hours. Woods retained the general structure of the code when he expanded the game, typically adding on to the end of existing tables and squeezing creative variations out of his own imagination and out of the possibilities he found in Crowther's original material. Where Crowther was an efficient minimalist, Woods was comparatively lavish with scenery. And we also have, courtesy of this article, what Willie and his family thought of Don Woods' version of the game. When asked what her father thought of Woods' expansion, Laura, who became a middle school science teacher, said, I remember being extremely irritated by things like the pirate and Dad saying not to blame him, it wasn't his fault. Sandy, who became a Sun Solaris administrator, has vivid memories of being addicted to playing the Crowther Woods version when she was older. As a child, she remembers mostly being frustrated by her father's version. When asked about her father's reaction to Woods' expansions, she recalled, I got stuck with Kill Dragon. What, with your bare hands? You have to say, yes. I remember my father saying, that was Don Woods.
Yeah, Don Woods was always like in the office going like, yeah, you see that dragon I killed with my bare hands? He's like, we all knew he was just talking about like a catfish, but
They did not share the same office. The story about the catfish and the dragon, though, that's true.
That dragon? I could take him.
So, Don had begun working on his version of Adventure in around March 1977, and by May, his version was complete enough to release and was soon attracting attention across the United States. Don's version became the most recognizable and widespread version of Adventure, in part due to its wider code availability, as it ultimately led to several other variants of the game being produced. And it's here where we reach a sort of fork in the road. We have further developments on Adventure by folk in the computer industry as hobby projects, and then we have proper commercial efforts seeking to canonize and capitalize on the Don Woods version of Adventure. Let's briefly address the hobby end. You can find a number of these variants having been developed between the late 1970s and early 1990s, with several of the most notable preserved on the Colossal Cave Adventure page, specifically this page, this downloads page, pictured here on the screen. The focus in these iterative versions, these hobby grade versions, typically seems to hone in on expanding the possibilities for scoring, with a particular 550-point version by one David Platt seeming to be one of the most popular variants outside of original 350-point Adventure. Tinkering with the complexity of the cave system and puzzles within, pushing the limits of some of the more primitive programming languages which constrain them. These were like the things that the hobby grade people were interested in. And for his part, Don himself continued releasing his own personal updated versions of Adventure intermittently until 1995, culminating with a 430 score variant referred to within the community as Adventure 2.5. And while there's certainly a sort of beauty to this collection of homebrewed variants, we're going to move quickly past them for the purposes of keeping this history section on track. Also, I'll keep it real, I just can't be convinced to care about the particulars of like Fortran source code and Warp OS2 executables or whatever the fuck. You know, it's great that it's all preserved here. That is important. That is essential. But it's outside the scope. Go check that out on your own if you're a programming nerd. One of the first proper efforts to commercialize Adventure, then, came in the form of 1979's Microsoft Adventure, originally published for the TRS-80 and Apple II, before ultimately making its way to IBM PCs, what you would expect them to publish it on, in 1981. This version was developed by Gordon Letwin, representing one Softwin Associates. The game basically plunders the bulk of its contents from the Don Woods adventure, while adding a small handful of unique rooms and puzzles. It would go on to prove highly popular and highly successful for an early Microsoft, included as one of the first 2 games for IBM's PCs, alongside Donkey.bas. And of course, in classic Microsoft fashion, this version of the game would fail in any capacity to credit the game's original creators. This is per the Digital Antiquarian, who comes up several times in this history section, but I will read from their article on Microsoft Adventure here. Ahem. But now we come to the elephant in the room, the question of credit. At no place in the Microsoft Adventure program or its accompanying documentation do the names of Crowther and Woods appear. We are told only that Adventure was originally written in Fortran for the DEC PDP-10 computer, as if it were the result of some sort of software immaculate conception. Needless to say, Crowther and Woods were never contacted by Microsoft at all, and received no royalties whatsoever for a program that by all indications turned into quite a nice seller for the company. It was later ported to the Apple II, and was one of the programs IBM wanted available at day one for the launch of its new PC in 1981. Because Crowther and Woods, immersed in old-school hacker culture as they were, never even considered trying to assert ownership over their creation, Microsoft violated no laws in doing this. However, the effects of cloning someone else's game design and lifting all of their text literally verbatim, and then copy-protecting it, the irony, and selling it, well, I don't think that calling it ethically dubious is going too far out on a limb. Well said, Digital Antiquarian. So,
You ever heard the rap, "Don't copy that floppy"? It is actually about don't rip off games from Crowther and Woods. People lost the message. They thought it was about piracy. It was like, no, keep your hands off of Adventure. Jesus.
they couldn't find a way to make it rhyme. They couldn't find anything that rhymed with Crowther.
Yeah, I don't want to sidetrack too much, but why was it specifically not illegal? Like, was it already
It was public domain.
Okay.
Yeah, so effectively, because they never issued any copyright or patent or trademark or anything of that sort, they just put it out into the wild. And that was like the hacker ethos that's mentioned there, is just like people who were doing cool stuff with the computers were just like keeping it to themselves. It was such a niche community that there was really like no need to assert that sort of ownership. Everyone just kind of had like had handshake agreements with one another outside of like, you know, the corporate and military industrial implications of technology at that point in time. But as far as like the people who were just like enthusiasts, why would they bother? And it was only with like the advent of the late 70s going to the early 80s that companies, your likes of your Microsoft and Apple, were starting to like really start to monetize the home computer market and so on and so forth.
I noticed the parallel between as if the result of some sort of software immaculate conception and the original spread of it, of people just taking it and secretly installing it on other people's computers just so it would be sitting there.
Yeah, there's definitely, you know,
I'm not saying that's
a magical
justification.
thinking.
I'm saying there's a parallel.
Yeah, it's a magical sort of thinking that the people would have still had at this time too, about how computer programs came to be, that Microsoft could almost get away with it because no one was thinking about the game in terms of like who made it, right? They were just thinking like, oh, I've heard tell about this adventure game. Finally, someone's bringing it to the mass market. Finally, someone's putting it on a disc. They would just assume that it was the original creators, but no, not the case. If you want to find a version of Adventure that has the sign off by its original creators, we have to move now to the Software Toolworks, who we just recently played their Mario is Missing. Check out that playthrough. The Software Toolworks, who would release the original Adventure for IBM PCs in 1982, the first commercial release of the game actually endorsed by Crowther and Woods, or which made an effort to actually get them paid for their work. Although Adventure exists in the public domain, programmer and company founder Walt Bawalski decided to go the route of marketing the release as being a quote-unquote official version by seeking the approval of its original creators. Certainly a classier move than what Microsoft had pulled. This version of the game was additionally expanded so that at the end of the game, the player is admitted into a fictional wizards guild and given a password that could be mailed into the Software Toolworks offices in return for a certificate of wizardness, underwritten by Crowther and Woods and signed with the Toolworks corporate seal. This release wound up being quite successful for the Software Toolworks and enabled their growth and expansion within the burgeoning game software industry, not to mention helping to further spread the word and influence of Adventure. So there is someone who's actually going out of their way to attribute credits in the way that you would hope that people would, to show that, you know, it wasn't completely unheard of to do this. There were some people who had some degree of scruples about being in the computing and games industry, unlike a Microsoft, but that's a whole other can of worms. Now, you may have noticed so far that we haven't actually referred to any of the games being discussed here as Colossal Cave Adventure with all 3 words yet. This isn't to say that players at the time hadn't already been informally referring to the game as such, given that one of the first lines of text in Don Woods' version of the game reads, "Somewhere nearby is a colossal cave." But who were the first folk to actually go and formalize putting colossal somewhere in the game's title? That'd be Level 9 Computing, operating out of the UK, who'd release Colossal Adventure in 1982, originally for NASCOM computers, a very specific line of European computer.
Totally different version of the game. No cave.
No,
just
no.
Colossal, just somewhere nearby.
Just a great expanse. They go on to greatly expand the game in the course of converting it for the microcomputers of the era, the Amstrad CPC, BBC Micro, etc. So it does come out on actually accessible computers past a certain point. There's a reported addition of as many as 70 new rooms to explore and puzzles to solve within. It'd kick off their own line of text and later graphic adventure games, and later be retroactively canonized as the first installment in their influential Jewels of Darkness series. Trilogy, I mean to say. Anecdotally, this is purely speculative, I'm going to call this the point, the moment at which publishers began to realize that putting Colossal and Cave in the titles of further iterative releases of Adventure, or derivative releases of Adventure, as the case may be, that putting Colossal and Cave in the title was probably a better way of branding and conveying what exactly it was they were selling to consumers, besides just calling it Adventure very generically. That, and the fact that by this point, the term Adventure, as a standalone term, had only gone on to become a genre of game in and of itself. It's fair to call Adventure one of the single most influential video games of all time, right up there with the likes of Tennis for Two and Space War in terms of early games history. Now, I'll grant that whereas those 2 examples represent the absolute firsts in their genre, being 2 of the first video games ever made, period, Adventure was not actually the first text adventure ever released to the public. Credit for that has to go to 1974's Wander by one Peter Langston, who developed the title on and for mainframe computers, and with the intention that it'd serve as, quote, a tool for writing non-deterministic fantasy stories. Effectively, having his game serve as a template for users to write their own adventures using the code base. There's an article over on Killscreen that gets into the rediscovery and preservation of Wander in the last decade. If you can get past the paywall, if you can text parse your way past the paywall on that site, it's a article worth reading for what it's worth. Returning to the subject of Adventure, though, which clearly wound up being the more influential of these first 2 text adventures. I mean, we literally get the name for the adventure genre from the informalized name of the game, from the fact that people called the game Adventure, therefore it bursts the adventure genre. Actually, for a while, folk were actually calling early adventure games Advent games, as a nod to the command you'd enter to start the game up, in the same sort of fashion that early FPS games were all called Doom clones until the concept of game genres really came to be codified. There's a quote from a 2003 book titled Twisty Little Passages, An Approach to Interactive Fiction by one Graham Nelson, who wrote ports of games the likes of Adventure and Adventureland, in addition to writing his own text adventures, as well as a programming language for text adventures. This guy is deeply interwoven into the history of text adventures, and it's by his record from this 2003 book, where he says that for the 5 years to 1982, almost every game created was another Advent. So one of the most notable advents, in that case, would have to be 1977 Zork, mentioned earlier, which would have begun development within a month of the release of Don's version of Adventure. That game was developed by a group of MIT students, including one Dave Lebling, oh, funny that name popping back up again, who would collectively go on to found the studio Infocom, as alluded to earlier, and then put out Zork. So yeah, Zork, developed by one of the guys in the room with Willie, as he was developing Adventure. So very clear 1 degree of separation between those 2 games. And also, for what it's worth, Zork is honestly a way better and more accessible game than any version of Adventure ever was, and there's probably a pretty good reason why it seems to have more cachet in the cultural zeitgeist, not just owing to the fact that Activision eventually buys out Infocom and gets the rights to Zork, hence why it's able to be put in Black Ops at all, and also all the squeakles that came out to it. But yeah, Zork just a better, more sophisticated, more fantastical game, I will say. We also have to mention the 1980 release of Adventure on the Atari VCS, which was originally developed, designed by Warren Robinette on behalf of Atari as an attempt to create a graphical adventure of Willie and/or Don's adventure. And, doesn't quite manage that heady feat given the hardware constraints of the time, but the game that he puts out still winds up being a hugely inventive and innovative game in its own right, not to mention hugely successful for Atari.
Did Colossal Cave Adventure have ducks?
No, it did not.
Somebody get this freaking duck away from me.
So it's from the 2600 Adventure that we eventually wind up coining the action-adventure genre. One of the most nebulous and stupid ways to define games, in my personal and fucking correct opinion. I hate calling games action-adventure games. Let's call them action games.
Johnny, let's have a 10-minute discussion on the difference between roguelike and roguelite.
Well, let me get to Rogue, which is to say that we have to mention 1980's Rogue, as it was obviously inspired by the original Adventure, where the decision was made to really hone in developing Rogue on the fantasy elements and make it all the more like D&D. It actually started development as a text adventure game in itself, before settling into the ASCII art aesthetic, the iconic ASCII art, with keyboard shortcuts in place of full-on text parsing. And, there's a million more things to be said about Rogue, to be said about Adventure, to be said about Zork, but we've got to keep this shit moving. We're going to hone in on one individual in particular, one creative who was inspired by Adventure to get into game development, whose experience playing Don Woods' version of the game would go on to change not only the course of the rest of her life, but ultimately help to shape the games industry as a whole. Roberta Lynn Williams would have been in her mid-20s by the time she first encountered Adventure on her husband's home teletype computer. She'd had experience with computers in previous jobs as a computer operator, a COBOL programmer, and a clerk at the Los Angeles County Welfare Department, but by this point in 1979, she was a stay-at-home mom looking after 2 children. Her husband, Ken Williams, was employed as a computer programmer and consultant by day, but worked at establishing his own technology business by night, desperately searching for that one big idea that could put him on the map. He'd brought the teletype machine back home as a way of remoting into one of his jobs, developing a tax program and an IBM mainframe, when they discovered Adventure installed on said machine. It was Ken who showed the game to Roberta, and from there that she got hooked on text adventures, reading for the part of Roberta Williams, Sharky.
I just couldn't stop.
Actually, no. Come on, voice. I just couldn't stop. It was compulsive. I started playing it and kept playing. I had a baby at the time. Chris was 8 months old. I totally ignored him. I didn't want to be bothered. I didn't want to stop and make dinner.
That is a quote from a historylink.org article retrospective on Roberta Williams that is also very good. Very, very telling that she'd leave that one on the record, but it doesn't get any better for her in the quotes we have to follow. So what was to follow has been heavily romanticized, with the most commonly shared narrative being that Ken and Roberta somehow couldn't find any other text adventure games on the market, as if they were in short supply at this time somehow. This eventually leads to Roberta deciding that she wants to make her own adventure game, even though she apparently had no idea how to work a computer and had to rely almost exclusively on Ken for programming tips. Despite the fact that she'd already been a programmer, was able to independently operate the teletype machine, and had even gone and blown a huge portion of the household budget on her purchase of an Apple II computer in her own personal computing pursuits prior to this. There's disagreement on whether or not it was Ken or Roberta who bought that Apple II in particular, depending on what source you consult, but I reckon that speaks to the issue here. There's just not a concrete story here between all the various retellings of it, despite Ken and Roberta ostensibly being on the same page and trying to cement their legacies as game industry icons. They just can't get their stories straight when it comes to...
She was too busy playing Adventure to understand what was happening in her life at the time. And
to understand time and space and who
may or may not have been a computer programmer.
It really is like, not to go too off on a tangent here, but the amount of revisionist history that comes from the mouths of these two specifically, the amount of times they change their stories, they tweak little details of it, or remember new details like years down the line. Oh, it's infuriating. So with all that in mind, I'm going to skip a whole bunch of the purported story here. You know, there's some fucking bullshit here, some more bullshit there. There's, along the way, a bunch of genuine technical innovations that are interesting, but which, again, I'm just compressing for time here. And then, bam, in 1980, we get Mystery House by way of Online Systems, Ken's newly established company for distributing the release. It's a horror mystery game with plenty of notes of Agatha Christie and Clue and the like, where you navigate a house and talk to its occupants in search of hidden treasure until characters start dying and transitions to a sort of survival game. This is all hugely innovative for the time, it must be said. Unparalleled levels of complexity when stacked up against the likes of other Advent clones on the market. Oh, and it's also the first graphical text adventure game to boot, granting you visual representations of the rooms at the top of the screen above the text parser. It's also charmingly amateurish.
We'll discover who killed Vib Ribbon.
It's tragic. Vid Ribbon's a dead man. Miss him. It's also charmingly amateurish all around, from the presentation to the writing, and even to the implementation of the text parser and how your directional inputs relate to the in-game space. It's a mess. But that's all just nitpicking when you consider that Mystery House was a first of its kind from first-time game developers and still managed to move the medium forward by leaps and bounds. So, I want to take a moment to acknowledge 1982's The Hobbit here, another graphical adventure issued across microcomputers and designed largely by one Veronica Megler, the first employee hired at the legendary studio Beam Software, also known as Melbourne House.
Quick correction, 1982, I believe you said 92.
1982. Granting that Veronica came 2 years late to the party, she misses the credit as being the first lady to write an elaborate adventure game. But, let it just be said, for all the flattering things I just said about Mystery House, yeah, The Hobbit, comparatively feels like 100 billion leaps and bounds forward in the genre, and is one of the most impressive accomplishments ever at that point in the games industry. Just absolutely blows away whatever Roberta would have been up to by that point in 1982. It just blows it out of the water. Never mind Mystery House 2 years prior. Though, yeah, I do have to note that The Hobbit was obviously inspired in large part by Mystery House, so you can't really have one without the other. Fuck, I mean, The Hobbit is probably a better game than any of the King's Quest games we're going to talk about here in a minute, but y'all probably aren't ready for that conversation. It should be noted that Veronica also really didn't get her due back in her day, back in her time. She really only started to receive proper recognition around the time of a great big story mini documentary, a video released to YouTube in 2018 that covers her story as one of the early innovators of video games, of the text adventure. And it culminates in her starting to be recognized as a pioneer in adventure games, and rightly so. Unfortunately, Veronica is at this point, in the current day, a, quote, principal data scientist at Amazon, specializing in machine learning. So, fuck her, I guess. Oh, if only I could say this is the last time in this history section we're going to ruin your perception of an industry icon, folks. I'm so sorry. we prop him up just to kick him down. It's the worst.
Machine learning isn't necessarily the stuff
for Amazon. Right, I don't care. She could be saying, researching puppies for Amazon, and I'd still just be convinced that they're just finding a machine to kill puppies because it's fucking Amazon. It can't be good. It just can't be good, Sharky. I'm sorry. Anyhow, we're going to speed through a whole bunch of history here and covering Online Systems' transition into Sierra Online, where off the strength of sales of Mystery House, which at this point when it first started was being packaged in Ziploc bags personally by Roberta and shipped out of the Williams house, and Roberta was operating the phone hint line all the while, like a real rinky-dink operation. They'd eventually off the strength of those sales, go on to hire a team of over 100 employees, generating tens of millions in dollars in revenue just within like a couple years. Roberta's games Wizard and the Princess and Time Zone pair alongside Mystery House as the first 3 entries in the company's high-res adventure series, culminating with a 6th installment in that series in 1983 with a license tie-in to Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal. At the same time, the company is publishing adventure games by other developers, one of which being 1981's Soft Porn Adventure by way of Blue Sky Software, which eventually goes on to be remade as a little game by the name of Leisure Suit Larry, kicking off another one of Sierra's most lucrative IPs. And if you happen to look up the cover to Soft Porn Adventure, we can't put it here. If you look up that cover, you might spy one Roberta Williams posing nude in a hot tub alongside 2 of the company's other female staffers, as was the style at the time.
That's wild.
Probably the key breakthrough in these early years for Sierra came with Roberta designing the first installment in the King's Quest series, establishing the formula and game engine that would come to codify the company house style for years to come. That engine called the Adventure Game Interpreter, a codebase that was utilized across most of the classic Sierra adventures, as they'd come to be known, or Sierra Ventures. King's Quest is the first adventure game to allow you to also move your character around the screen to negotiate obstacles and examine the environment, while at the same time providing the classic text parser for complex inputs. It's ultimately a basic story of a knight being summoned to find treasure for his king, but it's in the impressiveness in the presentation and the complexity of the puzzles that the game makes a huge impact on the scene. Oh, and it still has that scoring system at the top of the screen at all times, harkening back to its Advent roots. Again, we're speeding through some essential games history here, so trust that we'll eventually give King's Quest and all the entries to follow their proper due when we get around to covering, like, I don't know, maybe King's Quest VIII Mask of Eternity on the show. It's
The
inevitable.
only King's Quest game I've ever played.
Well, that's great. Get it. Start while the starting's good. Getting the last one, the best one. They had all the time to perfect the formula with King's Quest VIII, don't you know? I will, of course, even though we're trying to move this show along, take this opportunity to state that King's Quest is full of all the kinds of bullshit that personally turns me off at adventure games and has historically frustrated players, including bullshit unpredictable deaths, lots of opportunities to unknowingly softlock the game, and just the tedious fucking nature of backtracking from screen to screen to screen to screen, hunting for elusive pixels you mixed. Again, hugely innovative, super important. You don't actually have to pretend to like it to appreciate its place in games history. Okay? I'm not going to mince any fucking words. You know, I respect it in abstract. Couldn't pay me to play it. Hey, maybe that's just me. Maybe people actually genuinely like this game. I don't know. It's hard to tell at this point.
Most people I know who play it are actually speedrunners, so I guess that's to say people who do play it want to get it over with as fast as possible.
Can't blame them. King's Quest 1 leads to King's Quest 2, leads to King's Quest 3, 4, 5, a remake of 1, 6, and 7 over the span of 1984 through to 1994, all directed and designed primarily by Roberta Williams. She also finds the time to put out a couple of other non-King's Quest games in the span of that time, including 1987's Mixed Up Mother Goose and the superb Laura Bow, The Colonel's Bequest in 1989. Really, that game is the completed vision of what Roberta set out to do with Mystery House 9 years prior, and is probably her masterpiece game, in my personal opinion. I think most folk go with King's Quest VI, Here Today, Gone Tomorrow, when it comes to picking out the best of Roberta's catalog. That or the next game we're going to talk about, but nah. I really like the stage play feel of Colonel's Bequest and the fact that it pulls off the illusion of everything moving in real time around you really well, has some really complex routines going on, really incentivizes replay in a way that no other King's Quest game does, I can tell you that much. And on top of all that, Laura Bow is clearly named and modeled after the original It Girl, Clara Bow, who I think is pretty neat. And so we move along. Okay, next big one here. 1995's Phantasmagoria, boasting a lavish $4.5 million production budget, facilitating live-action actors and cutscenes in a point-and-click adventure, showing up every other entry in the so-called interactive film subgenre by having actual substance to it, and going on to become one of the most successful adventure games of all time. Before I continue with the history, I just want to pull both of you. Either of you play Phantasmagoria? You, Charky? I feel
I
like
have not played it. I'm very familiar with it. I have seen it played through, but
Yeah,
I've never
same.
played it myself.
Okay,
Yeah,
good enough.
not played.
Is
Watched lots of playthroughs though.
fair enough. So other games had attempted to blend digitized actors and live action footage with classic adventure gameplay before. Games likes of Darkseid, Myst, and especially The Seventh Guest, looming large over Roberta's game here. But Phantasmagoria has the benefit of just being way more expensive and putting every dollar on the screen, computer screen. So expensive that it had to span 7 CD-ROMs even. But hey, it's like, you know, it's like playing a classic exploitation horror movie. You got the hammy acting, you got the excessive gore, you got the completely gratuitous and unnecessary sexual assault scene. So there's an interview conducted with Roberta by Andy Bellotti of Adventure Classic Gaming. And let's just say that the scene I mentioned at the end there became a big point of contention for the game. This interviewer probes that a little bit. I will read for Andy Bellotti here, and Chucky will again read for Roberta Williams. Andy Bellotti asks, the opening scene in Chapter 4 where Adrian is sexually assaulted by her possessed husband after an initially amorous encounter shocked many people. In Australia, the game was banned to everyone because of that scene. In the US, several retail chains refused to carry the game, and some reviewers accused the Phantasmagoria of making a game of sexual violence. In what ways is that scene essential for furthering the plot and character development within Phantasmagoria? Did you intend it to be a counterpoint to the lovemaking in the game's introduction?
That scene is very essential to the plot. I knew it would be controversial and could have taken it out at any time. I kept it in because it was the pivotal point in the plot, where Adrian suddenly realizes that something is terribly wrong with Don. Up to that point, she knows that Don isn't feeling well, but she attributes that to the bump on his head, or to stress from moving, or with his work. We know that he's possessed by some sort of demon, but she doesn't. This is the way I wanted to let Adrian know that something is very wrong with Don, and that he's capable of hurting her. I wanted her to start being afraid of him and to abruptly kick her out of her comfortable world and into a world of horror. That scene does that. Without that scene, the rest of the story would make no sense. And yes, it was a sort of counterpoint to the lovemaking at the beginning of the game, where Don is normal, and we see that he loves her and is really a gentle person.
Absolutely essential. No other way to convey that information. Couldn't just have, Adrian walk in on Don doing like some demonic ritual, like, doing like some weird stuff with like a painted pentagram on the floor. No other way imaginable to convey that information. There's just
He's just stressed.
No, you can't.
Well, honey, clean up the goat when you're done.
We're going to read from the Digital Antiquarian again in their description of the scene as part of their coverage of Phantasmagoria, as part of their coverage of all of Roberta Williams' games that they provided at a certain point. Ahem. The scene, which prompts by far the most discussion today, takes place out of the blue one morning when Dawn creeps up behind Adrian at her bedroom mirror and proceeds to sexually assault her. Needless to say, this is a disturbing place for even an adults-only game to go. Roberta Williams is hopelessly out of her writerly depth here. In contemporary interviews, she seems utterly oblivious to the real trauma of sexual assault, describing the scene as nothing more than a plot device to show Don's descent into evil. Its one saving grace is the fact that no one involved is up to the task of making the sexual assault seem even remotely realistic. Don humps and thrusts a bit without ever actually taking his boxer shorts off, and that's that. One can only hope that Sierra didn't shoot a more explicit version of this scene. Afterwards, Adrian, rather in contrast to Roberta's stated desire to explore, quote, deep emotions, just cleans herself up and gets on with her day, apparently none the worse for wear. Even amidst the more lackadaisical sexual politics of 1995, the scene prompted considerable discussion and a measure of public outrage here and there. Australia's Office of Film and Literature Classification refused to accept the game because of it, with the result that it was effectively banned from sale in that country. So much for Phantasmagoria the movie. In terms of gameplay, it isn't up to all that much either. Its reliance on canned snippets of static video dramatically limits the scope of its interactivity, while its determination to be as accessible as possible means that all of its puzzles are broadly obvious. A version of that tired old adventure saw, the locked door with the key in the keyhole on the other side and a handy nail newspaper. It's about as complicated as things ever get. In a way, all of this is a blessing. It lets you power right on through Phantasmagoria, laughing all the while, without getting hung up on the design flaws that dog most of Roberta Williams's games. End quote. Yeah, not to make too fine a point of it, but Roberta was just so completely out of her fucking depth by this point in 1995, trying to hang with genre contemporaries, the likes of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and just frankly getting fucking embarrassed by them in terms of writing and depth of storytelling. What Roberta excelled in, if anything, was in taking simple story premises and established genre stories, like Hunch for Treasure and Fantasy Kingdoms and period murder mysteries, that kind of shit, and then instructing the folk around her on how she wanted to incorporate some novel mechanical hooks into that, those programmers and such would ultimately be the ones to have to solve for and make sense of. Or, as Roberta herself would rather conceitedly put it, in a 1983 interview with Antic magazine, in a quote preserved by Iga's Ion Design blog, a very good featurette here, to quote Roberta Williams from 1983.
As far as programming techniques go, anybody could do it. It's nothing special. The specialness comes from the stories I make up, and nobody can do that but me. They can do it their way, but nobody can do it my way.
How humble. And, there's absolutely a place for this kind of creative director in the industry, and Roberta should absolutely be recognized for her contributions to the adventure genre, but, almost none of the stories she told ever had anything resembling thematic through lines or layered characters or anything else that really elevated them or gave you anything to think about beyond, gee, it sure is nice when good triumphs over evil. That shit could pass by just fine in the 80s, but was woefully out of date come the 90s. Look to Jane Jensen's Gabriel Knight games, also put out by Sierra in the 90s, or perhaps to Phantasmagoria 2, A Puzzle of Flesh, put out just a year later, this time with no involvement from Roberta, thank God, instead written and designed by Lorelei Shannon, representing monumental steps forward in queer representation. It'd be one thing if Sierra were still trying to hold up some image as standard bearers for a more simple era of adventure game storytelling, but the fact is, they were putting out games left and right that totally subverted the original form and made huge strides towards games as a medium for intricate and mature storytelling, raising a standard that Roberta could not meet, in which she clumsily fumbled when called upon to try and do so. She's so bad. She's so heinously out of her depth. She is the queen of adventure games. No one like her, no one better. So, would you be surprised to hear that Roberta's looking for a way out of actively participating in game development at this point and took the first opportunity to do so? Would that shock you? Okay, so we move along. In 1996, Sierra was sold to one CUC, or CompuCard International, a membership-based consumer services conglomerate, for more than $1 billion in stock.
Hey, sorry, folks. Hey, it's me, Charky. I'm coming to you from 2026. If you can hear me in 1996, maybe don't call your company Cuck International. It's not going to age well.
I think it ages appropriately for this batch of fools, which, if you look at this image, who's that on the left? Oh, what do you know? That would be one Ken Williams. We'll get to how he got into this photo in just a minute. So, CUC, or Cuck, grew to be huge off the back of mail order clubs and dropshipping schemes, while also being among the first companies to adapt to the internet and test the waters of electronic commerce. It also helped that they were engaged in what we'll call, what I'm just going to refer to diplomatically as highly creative accounting, but more on that in a minute. Roberta had opposed the deal and claims, with the benefit of decades to get her story straight, that she had immediately felt that there was something suspicious about CUC's financials. This after having been rubbed the wrong way by company bigwig Walter Forbes, I believe pictured in the center of this photo, who had personally fronted the deal to her in a hotel lobby. Unfortunately for Roberta, and for everyone else at Sierra for that matter, Ken Williams is a fucking rube who was incredibly desperate to be accepted among the rich and the famous, to be rich and famous himself, as he had been his singular dream for his entire life. We cut two quotes from a 2020 Vice investigative article here. There is a quote from one Jerry Bowerman, a MBA and vice president of product development for Sierra at that time when CUC swooped in, who says of his boss, Ken was so enamored with Walter, and Walter was such a smooth talker. Ken is singularly motivated by money, and he saw Walter flying in these private jets, buying expensive wine, staying in a nice hotel. Ken became a fan. Roberta Williams, quoted in that same article, speaking about her husband,
So let me tell you about my husband. Ken is a very nice person. You might say he's nicer than I am, and he's very trusting. He's actually too trusting to be a CEO of a company in some ways. He doesn't ever like to see a bad side of anybody. During our whole run at Sierra, from starting it to selling it, I've occasionally said to Ken, you know that person? I really have to question that person and whether we should work with them. And he would always be a little offended that I would think that way about someone. He would. He tended to be trustful.
That's certainly a word for it. I prefer to call him a rube. So much a rube was Ken that he ignored the advice of literally everyone else in his life in order to make the $1 billion deal. Ultimately, both Ken and Roberta would have had to contend with the fact that the terms of the deal were too favorable to refuse, and that the couple could potentially be sued by their shareholders if they failed to, quote, maximize value in their eyes. Plus, Ken was apparently just pretty stressed out about the whole prospect of continuing to run Sierra, always feeling as though he was limiting its potential by being the one in charge. As Ken would go on to state in his autobiography, titled Not All Fairy Tales Have Happy Endings, boo-hoo, as fun as developing games are, when you've done it for, at that point, almost 18 years, that gets a little old. Brief aside, but Ken's book seems to be not good. At least not if you're looking for like a comprehensive breakdown of how the company came to collapse. The title would seem to indicate it would be about. Or if you're looking for Ken to put aside his ego at any point in time and not just self-aggrandize himself at every possible turn, at least according to the reviews I've read, I'm not going to read this piece of shit. There's also a really telling line from author Duncan Fife at the top of that Vice article that reads as follows. Ahem. Williams does not in his book offer a culprit for the death of Sierra and has no real animosity for the most obvious candidate. Why is that? I spoke to Williams and many others, and to understand it, if Sierra Online was murdered, why does Ken Williams seem to like the man who did it? Like I said, fucking rube. That was me saying that, not Duncan Fife, but you can infer. It kind of gives the whole game away that Ken is a pretty terrible narrator for his own life story, and that he probably still doesn't fully understand himself how it all went to shit under his supervision. There's another quote.
Real great making his life stories text parser.
You got the programming end of it down pat. The part where you actually have to live it and make decisions, not so much. There's another quote compiled in that Vice article, this one from Leisure Suit Larry creator Al Lowe. When Cuck took over, they said, we love the company, that's why we bought it. Translated into English, that means we're going to change everything. The company's management and decision-making dramatically and immediately changed under Cuck, CUC, leading Ken Williams to leave his role at Sierra and work directly for their new parent company, specifically on a personal project of Walter's dubbed Netmarket, with the gullible understanding that one day he'd be allowed to return to heading Sierra. And of course, there were waves of layoffs made in the interest of restructuring in order to juke Sierra's stock numbers, because some things never fucking change in this stupid industry. Roberta Williams at this point had something of an ego as the company's golden child, reportedly describing herself as no less than, quote, the Steven Spielberg of gaming, at least according to testimony of former Sierra CFO Ed Heinbockel. And, every big-name director still has to have their financial flops, yeah? Enter the ill-fated King's Quest Mask of Eternity, also known as King's Quest VIII, an attempt to modernize Roberta's franchise with full 3D exploration, active combat, and RPG mechanics. Needless to say, Roberta was not thrilled by these ideas, preferring that her games continue to remain something of a relic in time, to strictly exist within the comfort of her limited interests and experience. And so began something of a tug of war. Roberta would strike elements of the game from the design documents, only to see the team re-add them at the behest of management, leading to a power struggle between parties involved. Again, we'll get into more of this when we eventually do cover Mask of Eternity on the show, so just take our word for it now that this tortured development didn't result in a particularly great game. Meanwhile, as development is dragging on, Roberta is worried about Sierra's future, rightfully so, and ultimately convinces Ken that they should sell their stock before the whole company collapsed and took all their money with them. By this point, Ken was starting to wise up to Cuck's shady practices and the fact that Walter Forbes was leading him along, so he was more amenable to the prospect of cashing out at this point, and so the couple soon divested themselves from the company that they had birthed, with Ken resigning at the end of 1997 and Roberta staying on just long enough to finish development of Mask of Eternity, per contractual obligation, and some want to see the project through to completion. Released in 1998, the game was considered a commercial and critical disappointment, leading to further layoffs at Sierra. That same year, Cuck was convinced Cuck was convicted of financial fraud, having been found to have exaggerated their revenues by more than $500 million, effectively giving way to what was then the biggest accounting scandal in corporate history, until Enron would pick up the baton just a couple years later. Entirely.
And they weren't even allowed to testify at trial. They just had to sit in a chair in the corner and watch someone else testify for them.
The ultimate punishment, or pleasure, perhaps. Who's to say? So yeah, there's entirely too much to cover here. But yeah, let it be known that Cuck was operating on completely made-up numbers and writing checks that their asses could not cash, and that Sierra was deeply and irrevocably damaged by their time under the CUC umbrella. An umbrella they were technically stuck under all the way into 2004. They were still technically a subdivision of CUC, even though they were going through it in the legal system. It's in 2004 when Sierra gets bought out by Vivendi in order to rebrand themselves as Vivendi Games, at least until 2008, when Activision Blizzard winds up gaining control over the brands and assets and decides not to leverage the Sierra brand for a long, long while. Shortly after the release of Mask of Eternity, before the shit really hit the fan for CUC, if we're taking a couple steps back here, Roberta described herself as taking a, quote, sabbatical from the games industry in or around 1999. In actuality, both she and Ken had been made to sign non-compete clauses with CUC that prevented them from working in the games industry for 5 years, seemingly a non-disclosure clause as well, preventing them from talking honestly about that fact in interviews. For their parts, Roberta and Ken both seem to have been pretty deeply affected by watching Sierra's slow demise over the course of the next several years, with Ken personally likening the experience to, quote, watching his child be tortured to death. It's a chapter in the lives of the Williamses that they repeatedly claim to be one of the most personally devastating in their lives, despite the fact they wound up landing just fine after the fall. More than can be said for many of the employees and friends they left out to fucking fend for themselves as Sierra was in the process of imploding. So let's just say that my sympathy for the Williamses in this instance is pretty minimal, considering it was a bed they had made for themselves and ultimately wound up getting to sleep plenty soundly in. But if you're still convinced that I've been giving Ken and Roberta too unfair a shake-up to this point, going a little too hard on the both of them in the face of their achievements in the games industry, let this next moment in their little history be the one that tells you what they were all about, and hopefully defines them in your mind. In or around November of 1999, Gamers Depot, a gaming news outlet associated with IGN by this point in the late 90s and subject to roughly half a dozen rebrands until its ultimate closure in either 2006 or 2010, depending on how you count it, that Gamers Depot posts an interview with Roberta Williams as conducted by the site's editor-in-chief, Dwayne Pemberton, and to call this interview anything short of an unmitigated disaster would be doing it a disservice. This is reputation-annihilating stuff we're about to document here, even as it appears to only be partially archived in the Wayback Machine. Again, owing just how many times this site rebranded and changed its domain name in the span of just a few years. But what is preserved here is enough to permanently taint the image of Roberta Williams in my mind and potentially in yours. So be warned, this lady is about to deeply embarrass herself. The Queen of Adventure Games has no clothes, and I must scream. Oh. So Dwayne Pemberton, on behalf of Gamers Depot, asks, why do you think that the adventure game genre has kind of died out? To which Roberta Williams answers,
Well, since I've not been in touch with the gaming industry as much as I'd like to, my answer might seem kind of off. Back when I got started, which sounds like ancient history, back then the demographics of people who were into computer games was totally different, in my opinion, than they are today. Back then, computers were more expensive, which made them more exclusive to people who were maybe at a certain income level or education level.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you do this snootier? Can you do this way more uptight? I really need to sell.
Computers were more expensive, I'm not going to do. But then computers were more expensive, which made them more exclusive to people who were maybe at a certain income level or education level. So the people that played computer games 15 years ago were that type of person. They probably didn't watch television as much, and the instant gratification era hadn't grown quite the way it has lately. I think in the last 5 or 6 years, the demographics have really changed. Now, this is my opinion, because computers are less expensive, so more people can afford them. More average people now feel they should own one. There's also the influence of the game consoles as well. So most of these people have gotten used to shoot 'em up kinds of games on the consoles. Now they want to get that kind of experience on their computers. Does this mean the original crowd still isn't there? Probably not. However, there are much fewer of them. And the numbers for a good selling computer game are much harder to reach now. Something that sold 300,000 copies then would be a lame selling game today. The other side of it is that adventure games, to do them right, probably have some of the highest production costs around. It doesn't appear that in today's world that our demographics will change anytime soon. Now, I do think that there is some hope on the internet. It's my feeling that a lot of people who are in love with their computers are now hanging out online.
I hate her. This is it. You can't come back from this. And to be clear, just up front, never apologize for this. So everything we're about to say, as we go in on her, never once apologized for this, never once looked back on this, never once acknowledged this interview, despite the fact that a lot of people saw this interview, especially as we'll get to it later. But just, oh my God, the wrong-headed complaints about income level and education level as indicators of a quality of person.
Hey, good.
Yeah, there's
Good
some,
news for Roberta. With the way computer prices are going now, I'm sure her audience is going to come back real soon.
Yeah, I also want to mention, intentional or otherwise, because I don't want to accuse anyone, but that kind of rhetoric usually has dog whistles in it as well.
Oh, you don't say. By the way, it should be noted, Ken and Roberta, millionaires by this point, had multiple homes, multiple fucking boats. They were 1%ers. And, reminder, they had come from, humble beginnings. And then as soon as they got fucking money in their pockets, suddenly they're elevated beyond the rest of humanity, beyond the average, beyond those normals, those poors. Fucking bemoaning the adoption of computers by the masses, as if affordable computing is not one of the most greatest achievements in the history of recorded human history. As if that's not a good thing, you dumb bitch. As if not everyone having a computer is not access to the World Wide Web. As if having access to all the resources of the internet is not one of the greatest steps forward in humanity. No, let's fucking complain about that. Oh, the poors are coming online now. They're going to ruin. They're going to stink the place up. Nah, come on. It's supposed to be you're a futurist. We're supposed to be celebrating this shit. It's supposed to be great that people have access to this stuff. Why are you like this, you crazy psychopath? The fucking failure to accept any fucking blame for the fact that her games weren't selling anymore, for her own failure to adapt to the changing market and simply make more accessible games. No, it's everyone else who's wrong. I'm the one who's right. I'm still making perfect games. It's everyone else who's wrong. It's everyone else whose tastes have changed, and for the worse too, because of the television. Oh my God.
Okay,
Awful,
but say something nice, though.
Say something nice. I like to pretend that the sea swallowed them whole in this fucking photo I found. That's a nice visual image I can put in my brain. That's a nice little picture for just for me. It didn't happen, unfortunately, but
also, Colonel's request was pretty cool.
It's unreal. This level of just dissonance, of just delusion, absolutely fucking unreal. So, we'll try to move along, kind of. Famously, or perhaps infamously, the website Old Man Murray would latch onto this disastrous interview snippet and publish one of the most incendiary indictments in the site's history, which is saying a lot, considering that the entire tone of the site across basically every article embodies the idea of gamer rage, the likes of which has absolutely ruined the state of discourse in the modern day. But hey, that was just a style at the time, right? All's good in the name of satire? Nah. Eric Wolpaw really went above and beyond in flaming Roberta on this one, and he crosses the line more than a couple of times. So much so that we can't repeat some of what he said here without getting immediately demonetized. And yes, this is in fact the same Eric Wolpaw who went on to pen a couple of reviews for GameSpot, including the Don't Play This Game classic, Sniper Path of Vengeance, before going on to write for video games the likes of Psychonauts, Portal 1 and 2, and Half-Life Episodes 1, 2, and Half-Life Alyx. That Eric Wolpaw. So, what we can do is say that while we might not endorse the tone, Eric is totally right to go in on Roberta for her pompousness here, to take her to task for dodging any responsibility for her games not selling as well as they used to, and blaming television culture while seemingly thumbing her nose at average people. He's also right to hone in on another really embarrassing quote of Roberta's from the same interview, which we can find which we can and will read his thoughts on here. I'll link to the Old Man Murray article with the content warnings attached. And it's good that this article is still up because this snippet here from Roberta is not preserved as part of the Wayback Machine archive of the original article, so it only exists in this Old Man Murray article at this point. So Charky, read one more line from Roberta for me, please.
I've been taking Spanish lessons, which I think is famous now. And that's like, I'm sorry. Wait. You know what's really, you heard this Spanish thing? Actually, it's popping off. I was into it before it was popular, but
It's on the up and up.
I've been taking Spanish lessons, which I think is famous now, and that's like 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. I want to learn Spanish because we have a house in Cabo San Lucas, and that'll hopefully be able to spend a lot of time at.
So I will read for Eric Wolpaw here. I'm going to let it slide the whole part. I can do a better Eric Wolpaw voice. I'm going to let it slide the whole part where she thinks her interest in learning Spanish is famous. Instead, I'm going to decode the statement, I want to learn Spanish because we have a house in Cabo San Lucas. What she's really saying is that she needs to be able to more effectively berate the impoverished servants that staff every American vacation home in Cabo San Lucas. Why is it that I am vilified when I point out that John Romero is not Caucasian, yet Roberta Williams can boldly admit to being a modern-day plantation boss and holder of Mexican slaves, and it passes without comment? How would brown and proud political rock rappers Rage Against the Machine take Williams' colonialist and possibly criminal insensitivity? Not well, I think. I imagine they'd bust a few dope rhymes right in her wrinkly old ass. Maybe more than a few, Roberta, you wrinkle ass. So, like I said, Old Man Murray doesn't hold up. By which I mean, games discourse hasn't really evolved too much past this retroactively embarrassing point in the 1990s, and we're all stuck suffering for it. But also, man, Roberta Williams just strikes me as completely out of touch and out of her depth, and she should probably stop pretending like the Gamers Depot interview never existed and issue something like a 27-year late apology for it. I mean, Eric should also probably formally apologize for all the shit he got up to during this time, but also, I don't think I ever need to hear from Eric Wolpaw again, especially after him trying to make a very weird case in the last couple days for the benefits of AI in games writing. Like, that's your fucking job, man. And also maybe read the fucking room. So yeah, I hate everyone involved in this. I hate everyone involved in this story. What's the classic Norm Macdonald line? I think everyone involved in this story should die. Would be a quote that would fit right in on Old Man Murray. So anyway, yeah. Roberta Williams, slave owner, 1%er. It's rough.
Okay, maybe don't say things I'll get us in legal trouble.
Yeah, maybe not. I'm just saying what Old Man Murray said. You can't hold me liable for that. We'll try to move along. So, anyway, Roberta and Ken get to sailing around the world as out-of-touch rich folk tend to do, generally coveting their accumulated riches and tending to their multiple luxury homes. Eventually, Roberta must have started getting a little stir-crazy in their yacht, though, as she eyed a return to the games industry in or around 2010. And what better way to make a splash back on the scene than to contribute to a casual gardening game on Facebook? Enter 2011's Odd Manor, seemingly Roberta Williams' grand return to collecting paychecks, with a free-to-play online social adventure game revolving around inheriting a home owned by a magician and growing plants with magic powers, with the exciting prospect of removing stray rocks and weeds along the way. This is what the game looks like. Roberta Williams returned to the industry in 2011, folks.
I don't know why. When you started the section, I saw the photo. I was like, is this a photo that represents them sailing?
No, we got plenty of photos of that.
I was just like, I don't know why I made that connection.
So, in case it seems like an odd pick of game for Roberta to return to, it should probably be noted that Roberta and Ken's son Chris was employed as a lead engineer at the game's developer Brand X, which should tell you...
Isn't that the villain from Food Fight?
Brand X, which should tell you all you really need to know as far as her actual involvement was concerned. She willingly put her name on something she probably had little to no real involvement in consulting on, let alone designing, as a favor to her son. And that's fine and all, but man, did it not serve to actually put this game on the map, as any interest Roberta's involvement may have brought to it seemed to immediately evaporate along with the game. There's still apparently some sort of attempt to turn Odd Manor into a series of books as of like 2025 or 2023. I can't remember which specifically. There's no involvement for Roberta at this point, of course, but who in the world could possibly give a shit about the expanded universe of a casual Facebook game from 2011? Apparently the author and no one else. Check out the oddmanor.com website. Still up. Still looks like a page from like 1999. The fucking Colossal Cave Adventure fan page looks more modern than this shit. But, yeah. There were a few further flirtations with Ken and Roberta returning to the games industry proper after that. An attempt at bringing back former Sierra staffers to work on rebooting Leisure Suit Larry in around 2013, which Roberta evidently declined that one. Later, Telltale Games, under directive from Activision, were trying their hand at reviving King's Quest, which Roberta further declined to participate in beyond offering some advice. That one falls apart. That effort on Telltale Games falls apart. Activision gets another studio on the horn by the name of The Odd Gentleman to develop 2015's episodic series King's Quest: A Night to Remember, which finally this time around Roberta at least humored by consulting on it in some capacity. If you ask me, what I reckon what Roberta was waiting on and what never arrived at her door was a blank check offer for one of the major publishers to approach her, telling her that she could make whatever game she wanted and slap her name on the cover so that could be marketed as the Return of the Queen or whatever. This is the opportunity she wanted to come to her. And if this is in fact what she was waiting on, she is indeed completely naive about the ways of the world and of the actual value of her name recognition in the modern gaming landscape. In fact, I believe we'll go on to prove that particular point in pretty short order. But first, a word from our scheduled end of the world. With the outbreak of COVID-19 in 2020 leading to lockdown ordinances, putting Roberta and Ken's world travels on hold for a time. I'm sorry, look at that fucking hat. Look at this fucking dweeb. Fuck off. Ooh, I get to ride the ship. I'm the captain of the ship. I mean, my passengers are my crew.
I feel like he's gonna tell me about his diabetes in a minute.
If you had a boat and that hat was sitting there, you don't mean to tell me that you wouldn't be like, I'm the captain.
No.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, look. If I was a douchebag that owned a boat, then yeah. But I'd stop myself from going that far.
I'm just saying, you put me at the helm of a boat, own the boat or not, and you have a captain hat there. I'm going to look at the hat. I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm the captain of this boat. I'm not defending him and his business decisions and all that stuff. I'm defending wanting to wear a captain's hat when you're on a boat.
But to take a photograph and then post that photograph online for people to see? Come on. Anyway, COVID-19 happens. Roberta and Ken had to put their world travels on hold for a time. They had to sequester themselves in one of their several homes and forced to live like the rest of us average folk. They probably even watched some television, those fucking sheeple them. The pair probably began to think long and hard about their legacy during this time, how best to carefully construct it so that they may forever be remembered as the titans of industry they believe themselves to be. It's around this time that Ken starts to write his autobiography career retrospective, the aforementioned Not All Fairy Tales Have Happy Endings, and that Roberta similarly dabbles in a bit of book writing herself with her 2020 novel, Farewell to Tara, a historical fiction story taking place during the Great Famine in Ireland, in which Roberta indulges in fantasticizing the stories of her own ancestors in a warring families plot. It's a book so good that its fans have to repeat how much they love Roberta and her games in every positive review that exists for it, while anyone who's not acquainted intimately with Roberta's history and games seems to not care for the book that much at all. Funny that, huh? Perhaps realizing that writing books was a little too hard for either them to commit to fully, that it was a little more critical than their times in the games industry, Roberta and Ken ultimately decided the best way to utilize this time and to shore up their legacies was probably just to get back into game development at this point. And, they'd effectively recreated the circumstances that led to them founding Sierra in the first place, as they worked together on their computers on a personal project together, stuck in the home, which finally brings us to the reason we're all ostensibly here, the idea to remake the game that started it all for Roberta in Adventure, which they would at this point formalize the name of as development began on Colossal Cave 3D Adventure. Colossal Cave 3D Adventure. Colossal Cave 3D Adventure. Yeah, that title's pretty bad. Just screams like 1995 shareware game, doesn't it? Probably best that they shortened it down to just Colossal Cave for their ultimate purposes here.
It sounds like the name of a game you'd see on Super Nintendo that there people be still arguing today if it's Colossal Cave 3D Adventure or Colossal Cave Adventure 3D.
Yeah.
Like,
And we'll
no, if you
never
look
know.
where it is in the box art.
We'll never have consensus. I'm going to link to an IGN article, an IGN feature, where they get into the origins of the idea to remake Colossal Cave. According to an IGN feature, the one I just linked, Ken had been brainstorming a game idea of his own in which he'd aimed to develop in Unity when Roberta came to him with the idea that he should remake Colossal Cave Adventure. To his credit, Ken did get Don Woods on the horn, as you remember, one of the original creators of Adventure, the popular version of Adventure from earlier. And Don Woods went on to explain to Ken that no one technically owns Colossal Cave Adventure due to the organic way it was disseminated. Neither he nor Crowther had ever tried to claim rights to it. Instead, they wanted to remain free to play, remake, retool, and iterate upon. So the Williamses could remake it if they wanted, as long as they didn't try to claim rights to it for themselves. End quote there. And so, Ken and Roberta get to weave themselves deeper into the tapestry of games history by tying themselves to one of the ultimate and legacy IPs. And as an added bonus, they don't have to pay a dime for the legal rights to do so. Gee, I sure hope they at least paid Don and Willie handsomely as some sort of like gesture of goodwill. You know, literally the bare minimum they could fucking do with their millions of dollars. Yeah, I fucking doubt that happened somehow. You know, Software Toolworks figured it out in the fucking 80s, but yeah, never mind when they're fucking hurting. Don't do anything like that, of course.
Now,
it's free.
Can we confirm whether or not they got any sort of payment for it?
I can confirm in my fucking heart that they did not receive any payment for this.
So legally, we can say that we don't know.
Yeah, we don't
Prove
know.
me wrong, Roberta. Hey, Roberta.
Yeah,
hey,
reach
Ken.
out.
Send me the fucking receipts.
Yeah, come on the show. We'd love to have you.
Fucking prove it to me. Burden of proof is on them, as far as I'm fucking concerned. So, in developing the idea of the remake further, the Williams go on to partner directly with Unity with the aim of simultaneously releasing VR and non-VR versions of the game, with the initial idea of apparently leveraging Unity Asset Store assets for all the in-game graphics. This is apparently Ken's idea from the start. Realizing that this probably would have made the game appear low rent as hell, they go on to discover a 3D artist by the name of Marcus Maximus Mira, a man with no previous game credits, whose entire career up to this point had been designing renders of luxury jewelry items as the founder of a company, XJewel.
This is not a real person, surely.
Well, get a load of this dude's fucking LinkedIn profile. Yes, he is very much real, and he is very much a clown. Like, how the fuck Roberta and Ken found this guy is a mystery. I'm gonna guess, this hazard a guess, it's probably owing to business dealings in the gold and diamond trades, where they must have really been charmed by this guy. Anyway, this Marcus guy, fucking sucks at rendering anything other than fancy treasures and trinkets. So when Roberta gets on the project, they end up relegating this Marcus guy to a producer role pretty quickly, take him out of the art asset generation, and they found some real artists to take his place. This, because of the new hires, eventually necessitates forming a proper company and a studio to develop the game. They found that studio in October 2021. Studio ends up going by the name Cygnus Entertainment. Why Cygnus? What does Cygnus stand for, you might be asking? It's the name of their fucking 60-foot motor yacht. The fucking assholes. Contemptuous. Just... Anyway, this studio grows to encompass around like 35 people who are actually working on the easy parts of game development. You know, the programming, the artistry, the implementation, all that bullshit. Roberta and Ken are doing the real work here, the hard work. Taking as many interviews as they could book in the interest of glorifying themselves and being told how important they are. It's frankly disgusting how many outlets gave these two the space to spout their bullshit without asking them any real questions about the process of game development, even checking to see that they had like any idea what they were doing at this point. There is maybe like one interview I found that tries to pry any real information out of them. It comes courtesy of Good Old Games, GOG.com. It was conducted after Colossal Cave had launched on their games digital distribution service. There is a bit in this interview where they try to suss out if Ken and Roberta had been keeping up with the industry at all during their yachting days. And the ways in which they choose to answer the question are pretty goddamn telling. So I will speak for the GOG interviewer. Johnny will speak for Ken Williams. Charky will continue to speak for Roberta Williams. Speaking of modern players, are there any present-day adventure titles that you enjoy? Maybe something that also inspired you during the creation of Colossal Cave?
When Sierra was sold. Oh, sorry about that. When Sierra was sold and then destroyed by the acquiring company, Roberta and I were incredibly saddened. We were locked out as a result of the sale from participating in the game industry. Instead, we decided to pursue real-world adventures and started traveling the world. I obtained a ship captain's license. We bought a small boat and explored 27 countries by water. Our explorations made us famous as world cruisers. We crossed the Berlin Sea and the Atlantic. We visited places like Japan, Malta, Croatia, and many more. We really didn't think about games or play games. We were too busy and having too much fun. When Colossal Cave started, it drew us in and no time to play games. We worked for nearly 2 years, 7 days a week, with virtually every waking moment. We're either talking about Colossal Cave or building Colossal Cave. It consumes us. We played little bursts of modern games just to see what they looked like, and whether or not we felt we could compete. But I can't say we spent a lot of time playing games.
Little bursts of modern games. Name one. Name one. Just one. just one. Just name one.
Blumpkin's Downfall?
That's right, my husband, Jim Ross.
It's just the mustache. I just assume he sounds like that. It's
Probably
completely
close
wrong.
enough. All right, Sharky, for Roberta.
This will be a short answer for me as well, for the reasons that Ken spelled out above. When we retired him, that the ahem is part of the
Yes, it is.
actual text here. We were in our early 40s and not at all interested in sitting around. We went about creating and experiencing adventures of our own making. One thing that is a truism, and I've talked with other computer and video game developers about this, once you create computer and video games for yourself for a living, you sort of lose the craving for playing them. Both Ken and I did play games when we had Sierra, but mostly just to check out the competition. Once we were out on our own, we just never did get back into it. That doesn't mean that we don't understand gaming or don't love it. It's just in a different box for us than before we became players in the industry.
So, just to recap, interviewer asks, are there any present-day titles that you enjoy? To which Ken responds, I love going on boats. Boats are cool. We're famous for sailing. We spent a lot of time working on Colossal. We played something in Arizona. Hey, Roberta, take over. And then Roberta says just some salty shit about how the Sierra stuff went down, and then pretends like game developers don't play video games. So, doesn't really answer the question. Kind of dodges it completely, if you ask me, but...
You know, like Giant Bombs is like Game of the Year guest list when they bring in developers and they're all like, I don't know, I don't play games.
Makes a really compelling list when they put it that way, shit. And that's about all the insight you're going to get into Colossal Cave 2023's development. Yeah, you can check their official website's news feed for some articles purporting to disclose the making of Colossal Cave, but these are just more in the way of self-penned fluff pieces, patting themselves on the back for being so clever and making such an important game at such an important time and blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'll post one snippet written by Ken, who talks about working on his previous little hobby project along with that Marcus Mira fella, when at this point in the story, Roberta steps in and tells him what for. Basically reminds him that they have a fucking brand to maintain and not to squander it any further than he already was by wasting his time on whatever bullshit he and Marcus were getting up to. This is a really deeply embarrassing and emasculating thing for Ken to post, but he posted it. He posted it on the internet. He posted it on his website for people to read. So, Johnny, go ahead and read for fucking Ken Williams again.
Well, you know, he did used to work for Cox, so... Hey. Adding Roberta to the project dramatically changed the project. It was a win for the players, but wound up meaning we would need to scrap months and months of work and start over. Roberta's sense of quality is such that she immediately looked at what I was building and said, "This is crap. You need to start over, assemble a team, do it right." Roberta was focused on something she called legacy. She didn't want a game coming out or do anything to damage our legacy. Marcus and my game showed promise, but it was at the level she felt all the game's reputation demanded. This was in early 2021. I remember believing, wrongly, that the COVID lockdowns were nearing their end. I was reluctant to make the time and commitment to build a bad game. The game industry is somewhat binary. You hit or you miss. There are the big AAA titles with giant teams and many hundreds of millions invested, and then there are the small indie titles with garage-level budgets and no expectations. Roberta was steering us into some super indie category of game development that I wasn't sure existed. She wanted us to assemble a world-class team of professionals, satisfying her requirements and visions for the project would mean a multi-million-dollar investment. I quickly ruled out going with a publisher. Roberta and I are in the fortunate position where we could fund the development of the game.
Thank you. So, just to recap that, he's working on his little hobby project with that jewelry guy. Roberta looks at it, says, "Hey, you donkey. Anything we put out is going to be irrevocably linked to us. You can't just put out a game for fun anymore. Anything we put out is going to be tied into our legacy, you fucking dolt. And so if we're going to do anything, it needs to be high production value. It needs to have a team attached. It needs to be big money. We can't afford, our reputations can't afford to do anything that's like amateurishly, just on the level, can't come from the heart." And that's Roberta Williams, you know? Again, Ken, I called him a rube earlier. I'd say he's a little gormless. I'd say he's a little bit naive. Seems like a little bit of a simpleton. And, you know, that's fine. Because, you know, at the end of the day, he seems like the one who was, like, actually passionate about the video game thing. Like, granted, he had, like, the worst choice of partner. He found, like, some fucking jewelry scam guy to work with. So, you know, speaks again to his bad judgment. But, you know, he was just developing something for fun. And then Roberta has to swoop in and make it all about her. Which, I don't know, just let that speak to the nature of that relationship, I guess, as much as we can infer from it. But I'm also pretty sure I'm right. So, come January 19th, 2023, Colossal Cave finally releases across Steam, Epic Games, and GOG on PCs, Nintendo Switch, and PlayStation 5, as well as on the Meta 2 VR headset, the Meta Quest VR 2 headset, at that, priced at a ludicrous $39.99. $40 for this Colossal Cave. Because you can just never have enough fucking money, can you? So, here we stand. Staring down the barrel of a glorified vanity project, an attempt by a couple of millionaires to define their legacy in an industry they helped shape more than 40 years ago. We look upon a supposed love letter to the adventure game that helped start it all in Roberta's mind, as reimagined by one of the industry's most celebrated and iconic adventure game developers. For all this pomp and circumstance, for all the press generated heralding the Queen's return, and perhaps the return of the adventure genre as a whole, how did Colossal Cave go on to fare critically? A resoundingly mixed reception, paired with what could only possibly be underwhelming sales. It's worth noting that the likes of IGN and GameSpot both elected to completely skip reviewing this one, which is kind of wild. It's almost as if they determined that it wasn't worth commissioning the reviews for it, knowing that they were only going to generate so many page views or whatever, and so they just didn't. They just skipped it. And what you get in the place of the big two are a lot of no-name sites, likes of Phoenix Gaming, spelled Phenixx, and Game Luster, giving it highly inflated scores, where I don't want to necessarily accuse them of getting paid in game keys and wanting to get on the good side of the Williamses, but, you know, make your own assumptions, draw your own conclusions on that.
But if you want to pay us in Game Keys developers, you can reach us at Bad Game Hall of Fame, courtesy of Charky or Cassidy.
At Bad Game Hall of Fame. You know, to be fair, some of the more established sites, likes of Tech Raptor and Game Informer, also wind up being fairly generous in their ratings as well, playing up the historical elements and cheering for the return of the adventure game genre, 80% scores and such, where a lot of them tend to fall. Then there are some outlets which bring a bit more honesty to the table, in my opinion, such as PC Gamer in a 55% scoring review, which wonders aloud if, quote, parts of Colossal Cave might have been better left buried. That's actually a line across a lot of reviews that get into the lower scores. They all kind of make the same joke, but, you know, it is what it is, games writing. Even former genre stalwarts Adventure Gamers, a site that you think would be over the moon just to have a new adventure game to review, provides what is honestly a pretty nuanced take in a 2.5 out of 5 scoring review, in which author Callie Monk seems to come to terms with the game almost in the middle of writing down their thoughts on it. to quote from their review here, though I will warn this website sucks. It's just inundated with ad posts now because no one's coming to adventuregamers.com, but they did put this review out. It's not a bad one, so I will read from it here. Overall, I appreciated this much more than I enjoyed it. The original game's influence is undeniable, and its history is fascinating. Evidently, the developers have a genuine love for the original, and they have put great effort into realizing its world to share their experience with the new generation. While they've undoubtedly made it more accessible, this feels like a step back. The best adventure games, including Sierra titles, have taken inspiration from Colossal Cave Adventure, and the many games that followed and reworked that formula, trimming player-unfriendly relics of older gaming like unintuitive puzzles and unwinnable states. But beneath the new exterior, Colossal Cave is an almost half-century-old game, and its bones, those bones show. Despite a lovingly crafted 3D reimagining, Colossal Cave recreates the original too closely to appeal to much more than game history buffs and nostalgia seekers. Or, I guess, very patient players who don't mind repetitive, arduous gameplay. And that's coming from a guy who likes adventure games. Not even the VR enthusiast press could be bothered to prop up Colossal Cave's VR version as any kind of get for their platform. Let us take the lowest scoring review for any version of Colossal Cave, a 2.5 out of 10 score from Omar Camel of 6 Degree of Freedom Reviews. Review link here. And he goes on to say, this review is written in the style of a text adventure, of like text adventure prompts where it says every like sentence begins with you. So it gets a little grating, but I'm just going to read a snippet of it here. After wandering around the caves for a while, you put down your Meta Quest 2 virtual reality headset and do other things which are far more enjoyable than playing Colossal Cave. You come back to it the next day, hoping your second session will be more fun now that you're inside the cave system. You find out that although the game offers 9 save slots, it does not feature autosave, and you realize this must be another ill-conceived way to remain hypothetically faithful to the fictional point-and-click game that the original never was. You remember that this game, priced at $39.99, costs as much as Resident Evil 4's VR version, and shudder as you imagine the disappointment it will deliver to anybody who buys it and misses the refund window. You conclude that the game is nostalgia bait for older VR players who will recognize the name of a game known mostly for being there first, and that this version delivers neither the text-based authenticity of the original nor the fun that you can enjoy for games costing half as much from the Metastore. Flawed by any metric you can conceive of, Colossal Cave is a colossal bore. It's a point-and-click port of a text-based game that refuses to acknowledge the medium to which it has been ported. End quote. I get the impression that Roberta and Ken did not take the news of Colossal Cave's disappointing numbers particularly well. Evidence to this effect is the fact that Cygnus Entertainment was basically immediately shut down following a mostly ignored 2.0 Enchanted Edition update of the game, issued in around November 2023, updating some of the graphics and sound effects while doing precious little else beyond that. You can read what they try to pass off as a changelog for the game here on the Steam community announcement update thing for this game. But yeah, back to the point. The Cygnus Entertainment brand seems to have basically been retired, as there have been no further projects in the works, and the associated social media accounts have been going stale since around mid-2023. Roberta and Ken have instead taken to repurposing the separate accounts registered for Colossal Cave 3D, because they not only made a company pages across like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube at all, they also made separate ones for the game itself, and those are ones that they flock to. In order to continue, they use this channel basically. I'm focusing mostly on the YouTube channel here, where they invite folks to Q&As and AMAs. They promote whatever personal projects they may be working on at that moment in time, appearances at conventions, and occasionally they post playthroughs of the game by Roberta that generate views in the 2s of thousands. It's fucking dire. It's a sign that whatever legacy the Williamses may have believed they had, whatever shine they expected to rub off on them from tying themselves to Colossal Cave Adventure, came in as completely underwhelming to them. It's almost as if, bear with me here, the folk who grew up with their classic adventure games, with the Williamses' classic adventure games, it's almost as if they've all grown up and moved on, if not completely moved on from video games, moved on to more exciting video game fare at the very least, without bothering to keep an ear out for the folks who made the games they played decades ago at this point. It's almost as if the larger swath of modern gamers don't give a fuck about legacy IPs and developers, let alone dusting off the very first entry in a genre of games they have and never will engage with. And as for everyone in between, the prospect of that $40 price tag on what is effectively a graphic wrapper on a 50-year-old game, absolutely ridiculous. It's truly a game for no one, other than the lingering cult-following adventure game diehards who have, by and large, mostly ascended this mortal plane at this point. And you know what? On some level, Roberta and Ken seem like they might have actually already knew that going in. We're going to return to that GOG interview briefly, and more words from Ken and Roberta. GOG asks, as classic games enthusiasts, both we and our community are incredibly excited about the comeback of Ken and Roberta Williams. How does it feel to be back, and what can we expect from Cygnus Entertainment? So just before you read, Johnny, before you read for Ken, that's just such a basic question, right? What's coming up next? Get us on the hook. Tell us, what we can wait for. Get us excited. Start building hype. And go, Ken.
I really don't know if this is the end of Cygnus Entertainment or the beginning.
Oh, thank you.
Guess is
thank you for the
thank you very much, Plugh. That's very generous. Your guess is probably as good as mine. Game development is incredibly fun and unbelievably addictive. Roberta and my personality is to do anything we do to the absolute limits of how it can be done. You see, this is how we ran Sierra, or how we did our boating. You want to know more about my boating? It would never have occurred to us to take the boat across the lake when there was a whole world to explore. We leap into anything we could do with both feet. During the creation of Colossal Cave, we thought of nothing else. My guess is that we're going to shift gears for a bit. I need to stand up for a bit and go outside.
Yeah. Thank you.
2 years.
Sundown McMoon.
Thank you very much.
Keep doing the impression, Johnny. It's working.
It's working. 2 years of sitting on a chair, staring at a screen, has uncomfortable consequences on your body. I think we'll return to our life as boaters, see how the game does, and we'll wait for new ideas to inspire us. Colossal Cave was an awesome idea and a perfect project for us to do. Like everyone, I'd like to think of some big ideas that can revolutionize gaming, but that inspiration hasn't hit me yet. Maybe Roberta will come up with something. We're fortunate to be in a position where we don't need to build games to pay the rent. We have the luxury of being able to wait to do something until we think of something to do that we think will be new and interesting to players. It's just tough to put that kind of inspiration on a timetable. All I can say is stay tuned. If we do something, it will be something worth doing.
So, just to recap, they ask, what's coming up next? And Ken immediately says, out the gate, I don't know if we're going to keep doing this company. I don't know if our heart's in it. Your game just came out! What are you doing? Fucking real.
I get partly what he's saying of like, I don't want to do it just as a job. Like, we want to do it when we're passionate. But it is also very telling that that passion is mostly gone already.
It's unreal.
And just the way he puts it, and it's like, oh, boating. You want to hear about the boat?
Well, Roberta was always the writer. She was the creative one, right? Okay, Roberta, fucking salvage this, please.
I say ditto. Couldn't have said it better myself as a writer. I embellished the as a writer part. As I've been saying since the beginning of this project, it will depend on the success of our Colossal Cave 3D. If we see that lots of people are playing it and enjoying it, that would certainly go a long way towards encouraging us to keep going for another game. But if Colossal Cave can't seem to win the hearts of people, then I would think we would be much more likely to pick up our ball and go home. Nothing would make me happier than to see Colossal Cave have a successful revival. I want people to recognize Will Crowther and Don Woods' genius. I'd love to come back and create something of my own, but I guess you could say I need the confidence in reinsurance. I also need someone to get Ken to get off of the boat. He will not come on shore. He says he is married to the sea now.
Oh, I can't believe that. Am I crazy? This is funny, right? This is deeply funny. This is deeply tragic. This is deeply embarrassing, right? Can I just guys get some confirmation I'm not the only person who is just completely taken aback by this? Ditto. Couldn't say it any better myself, you rambling fucking moron. My husband.
I really just find it funny that Ken has become Boatman. He is at any opportunity, any question, he has to transition to talk about his boat. He loves that boat.
So, oh my god, that's still funny to me. Sorry. So, it's almost as if the Williamses were bracing themselves preeminently for this whole project to not pan out. Which is good for them, because that's precisely what happened. And it's not like the financial failure or even the theoretical success of Colossal Cave was going to do anything to affect their bottom line. So why should they pretend to be invested in a return to game development in the long term? From the beginning, putting out Colossal Cave wasn't intended so much as a video game for people to play. It was intended as a litmus test, an experiment to gauge the public's interest in the Williamses and their personal brand, to see if they still maintain their relevance and status as public figures in the games industry, outside of showing up for keynote speeches on the convention circuit or whatever. And yeah, the experiment failed dismally, and now the only recourse left to help them stroke their egos are to put out low-view AMAs and Q&As where the nerdiest of nerds can validate them by remembering their classic games at them. There's another very telling quote returning to that Eye on Design profile on Roberta Williams that I believe should serve as the final word of this history section before we give our thoughts, our collected thoughts here. So I leave it to Eyes on Design. For someone who got so much personal fulfillment from her games, it's hard to understand how Roberta could remove herself so completely from them. But in the end, it was never really about the games. Roberta seems to have cared only as long as she was popular, and when her outlet for validation disappeared and the applause faded away, so did she. And that is more or less the history behind Colossal Cave prior to us playing the game 2 hours into this episode. But let's stall it out a little longer, why don't we? I do want to ask, because that was a pretty exhaustive one. Let's start with a positive first. How about that CCA? How about that original Colossal Cave adventure? Wasn't that interesting? I thought that stuff was pretty neat, if I do say so myself. Mm-hmm. It really shows the scrappy roots of this whole text adventure scene, of the whole adventure genre, as it were. You can see the influences that they had on everyone around them. And I think that stuff is really fascinating. I really appreciate the ethos of characters likes of Crowther and Woods, of Willie and Don, who are just doing it for the love of the game. And then to see that, capitalized on in some capacity, some more scrupulous and less than others. Did you have any takeaways from the CCA portion, you two?
I think Ken Williams' boat is really cool.
Shut up.
It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff that I kind of heard of already, because it is such a monumentous game. It has such like a kind of a maybe not pop culture well-known history, but it is a story that's been told many times about the quote at the start there about computer programming or computer development being set back 2 weeks, just by how many people were playing it. But yeah, I do think that is like a very interesting story. It's like not a game that I would go back to and play. I think even in my days of playing more text adventures, that would be a bit too dry for me. But yeah, it is monumentally important, and I think it is a cool story behind it. There's some very interesting people,
especially that era of the game just appearing on people's systems, and that free, essentially like what freeware and Doom would have done in the early 90s and stuff like that. Because I've always heard that story of how that that made Doom become such a big thing because people just freely shared that demo so much.
No,
so
absolutely.
It's interesting to hear like, oh, okay, so other games actually had got on their success and widespread recognition through similar means, and that's a very bygone era.
Yes,
really don't. There's like there's a couple of like demo stuff, but the idea of just like, hey, there's this software and the people themselves are spreading it is fascinating history to see.
Yeah, it's echoes throughout history. And, it's the sort of echoes that die out now because of distribution models being completely different, because the idea of, like, public computers is just such a foreign concept outside of, like, libraries at this point. But yeah, I mean, that shareware model, like, id at their time, even, like, the early 90s, adventures from... and so on and so forth, early Commander Keen, Catacombs, building up to Doom. Yeah, we're still very much inspired by the old ethos of doing things, and carried that torch forward in a way. And it is cool to see it as early as this in the history, if you do the digging on it. Now, That's the positive part. How do you feel about Roberta and Ken Williams after that? How do you feel about how petty they are? About how hung up they are on how Sierra closed down? Because that is like the only thing they talk about. It is like, besides their boat, is like the only thing they talk about is just like, you know, how bad Sierra went. Even though it was their own goddamn fault. Even though it was completely Ken's fault for like taking his eye off the ball and being suckered by like some guy in a suit.
Yeah. It's probably outside the scope of this. But I assume the CUC version of Sierra is probably the one that was involved with the mess with Valve in Half-Life 2.
Yes,
where they
that
tried
would.
to stop. Yeah. That's a very big story. There's I think NoClip made a documentary for Valve. It's on Valve's channel, so if you want to go see that. And the hilarious admission in the emails of like, yeah, we're trying to fuck them over, and they found that email, and that's old story.
We'll get into more
but
Sierra history. We will eventually get to that when we do King's Quest 8, Mask of Eternity, or any other Sierra games I
Yeah.
might be
But it's
neglecting
just-
right now.
you know, we've covered a couple before, and I know we're going to cover a couple soon, but it's interesting that there are some like long-time developers in the industry that are able to evolve with the times and survive the like how famous and like not get too sucked up in their ego. And then this is the other side of that, where it's just like you have this renown now, and then they believe they can do no wrong. Like I'm not comparing them as people, but like some of these comments remind me of some of the stuff that
Sandy Peterson.
Yu Suzuki.
Oh,
Well,
sorry.
definitely him, but I was thinking of Yu Suzuki in Shenmue 3, where he was like, "Oh yeah, I've not really played anything since Shenmue, and I'm not going to make the game like with any modern conveniences or ideas or advancement the industry's made." And spoilers, we'll be seeing that on the show one day.
Yep, we
Honestly,
will.
like my point of comparison was thinking of like Origin and Richard Garriott,
Yes.
who Origin
yeah, yeah.
and Sierra, by the way, those companies do intersect very importantly in very major ways with Ultima. But yeah, it is as Colossal Cave Adventure, as that story was kind of like the classic story of the early days of computers and computer games. This sort of like more freeform, like hacker-esque, you know, feel to it. This sort of more like magical almost thing of like, oh, we're just springing it around and it'll show up on your computer and it's this great thing. Sierra sort of follows the next saga of generally how stories in the game industry turned out, which is company gets really huge, people at the top think they're on top of the world, and then all of a sudden, whoops, business happened, everything crashed, everything went bad. So as you know, singular as Roberta and Ken Williams are in how they did things and what they were doing, they're sort of part of a story that was told many, many times across many, many different companies.
But not often as funny as it came out to be here, in my personal opinion. Just some choice quotes, just really deeply embarrassing stuff for my amusement. And, something I was doing, it's very subtly, I think, throughout the history section, what I tried to weave in was other important female game developers, oftentimes working at Sierra, doing other adventure games contemporaneously to Roberta and just like blowing her out of the water. Because, there is something of like a modern myth making around Roberta Williams. Not only is the queen of adventure games, but the Ion Design article hones in on something as well. I have another quote from it that I couldn't fit into the article, but I put it at the bottom here. I just want to read this real quick from that Ion Design article. The role of Roberta, queen of inclusion and gender parity, is something we've collectively written into the historical record. It's not only wrong to place the weight of feminist activism on the unsuspecting shoulders of women like Roberta's, it's dangerous. This revisionist history may be inspiring for young women today, but it's a falsely positive story and a false story nonetheless. Video game history doesn't know how to make sense of her except to single her out, says one Noonie, character that's referenced previously in that history section. That sort of does... what touches upon is that, the modern retrospective revisionist history that has been curated by Roberta to some extent is this idea of her being Not just one of the first ladies in game development, but like a very influential figure. She's tried to purport Phantasmagoria and the King's Quest, where you play as a female, where you play as the princess. I can't remember the name of it. We're numbered installments specifically. I think it's 7. I believe it's 7. And to position those games retroactively as having been massive steps forward, while also like forgetting her own Laura Bow adventures, or other stuff that was coming out in Sierra around that time, other games that were coming out, and just sort of like, the quote tries to give her the maximum amount of credit for saying that she wasn't trying to position herself that way back in the day. She was just a lady making games, but it does kind of miss that Roberta has absolutely played that angle up as much as is possible in recent years. And, it's something to be said for, if you're someone who is like a female in game development, and then the stories of characters like Roberta Williams specifically inspired you, I mean, that's great. Whatever gets you into the games development, I hope it would be like, I would hope on some level that individuals inspired in that way go on to do a bit more research and find that it wasn't just Roberta, that she was not a monolith, that in fact, contemporaneous to her, there were other female developers doing just as much, if not more, to forward the medium than Roberta was. Roberta may have been the biggest name at the time, but she was certainly not like the one putting out the best quality of work, who was, really conscientiously making those strides. And so I think there's something to be said for that as well. But I didn't want to get into that too much in the text. I did want to sort of keep the history moving as much as I could, but I would be remiss not to mention that angle on it here. So that will do it for the history section. Folks, thanks for tuning in tonight. That's 2 hours. That is, I think, our longest history section to date, unfortunately. Yep. I think we have to play the game now. At least for a little bit. This was never going to be a one-parter. This was never going to be a one-off, this game coming up. But I think what we'll do is we'll play let's say an hour and a half, maybe. You think we can hold out that long? Mm-hmm. A little more than an hour on this?
I went and got another energy drink during that history section. Very
good. Well earned. All right. So we're going to launch 2023's Colossal Cave. This is the a copy of the GOG version that I have. Need I say more?
Sorry, it's a very minor thing, but the Made in Unity thing, there's a certain price you can pay to not have that at the start of a game.
Oh yeah, we didn't get to see it on stream. Folk at home didn't get to see it, but yeah, it starts with the generic Made in Unity splash screen.
Yeah, so I just find that a little bit funny.
By the way, Cygnus, pop quiz, we know that the company was named after the boat they have, but what does Cygnus mean?
No idea.
Anyone know? Johnny?
No.
It means swan. It is the name of a constellation, which is also the Northern Cross.
Very cool. So you want to play with the enhanced
Cygnus,
graphics?
I believe. Oh, well, if you do unenhanced, is it a text adventure game?
That would be really funny. That would have been the move. That would have been. I would have appreciated that. I would have gotten a good laugh out of that. No, this is this undoes the 2.0 update that came out in November. And what this does, it just adds a bunch of fucking bloom to the game. That's really all it does. I think there's some animations that are supposedly improved. Basically, the idea was that when they developed the game initially, it had to be scaled for VR, so they couldn't do all the complex lighting effects that were possible in Unity. And so past a certain point, they just say okay, let's do an update that lets it run a little bit better on computers. That makes it look a little nicer on computers, I should say.
I'm glad we'll be running this point-and-click adventure game at 120 frames per second.
Yeah, it's constantly updating. Enhanced graphics on or off?
Oh, you know what? Your call.
It makes it look like a smeary mess, and I think it'll be slightly funnier to keep it off. And to understand that when I do this, this is how the game would have looked earlier in the same year.
Yeah, that's the thing. We can enable in a future episode if we want to contrast.
Oh, a swan, you say?
See, a swan and the Northern Cross. Yeah.
I prefer Southern Cross by 403 Forbidden. Sick band, sick song.
Also, that logo should have then just appeared on the back of a boat that sailed off.
By the way, I did
help,
as you suggested, look at the patch notes for the 2.0 version. That mentions the enhanced graphics, player footsteps, more atmospheric sounds, improved animations, better UI, and also this line. The cave itself is your adversary, not any of the characters. It really is between you and the cave.
That's wrong. There are
That's not
characters who are
patch
literally
note.
adversaries. That's one. You're correct. It's not a patch note. That's not an update. But two, there are characters who are literally antagonists who can kill you. So what the fuck is she smoking? The cursor is important.
So we're using the classic Wasad and Ipum control scheme. I'm assuming inventory, map, and pause.
Game menu, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's all good. I don't think I need to look at that.
That is a very Xbox Live mandated help and options page. Especially you'd see on like indie Xbox 360.
We have an about the game. Colossal Cave is a reimagining of the original text-based adventure game first introduced in 1975. Blah, 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 blah. We went over this, lady! Colossal Cave is already well known to tens of millions of gamers worldwide. Exaggeration. Several elements of the game, such as the code words Xyzzy and Plugh, are recognized instantly by many gamers. I do. I didn't bring those up. I didn't want to tip my hat or be too I remember this. Roberta Williams, who has received widespread industry recognition, including several Hall of Fame awards, and who is the designer of several industry-leading hit games, including King's Quest, Phantasmagoria, Black Cauldron, and many more. Thanks for this about the game.
Well, you know what? Congratulations on your newest Hall of Fame award right here.
In the game, some of whom will attack and some of whom will entertain. For instance, there's a troll at the troll bridge, a bear, a snake, dwarves, and a pirate. Just give away the whole game, why don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting. It's mostly focused on the VR side of it.
Hey, here's some more games. Phantasmagoria, Ultima, Red Bear, and Half-Life, and many others.
Mentioning Half-Life is really silly. I'm sorry.
As if they had any hand in that beyond fucking over Valve. No options.
The options are at the top.
Yeah.
No way to change them
Oh,
in
that's
game.
very old school. Yeah.
I guess we will start a new game.
They should have shipped this with a launcher as well.
Select difficulty. Do you crave a challenge? Ready to tackle the full 350-point game? Prepare yourself for an exhilarating test of skill. Recommended. Beware! Once you begin your journey, there's no turning back unless you start a new game. Or casual game. Explore the cave without the hassles. No pesky dwarves or the thieving pirates. Most puzzles and some dangers like falling from a cliff remain. Access our full set of maps to navigate easily. Warning! No achievements, no 350 points, and no complete ending. We'll do the full game. And for the record, I don't know. I don't remember specifically how to clear Colossal Cave Adventure. So I'm going to play this blind as can be for now until I feel like we're fucked. I will take advantage of the instructions, the hints system, that it is part of the game that'll cost us 5 points. I don't give a fuck about the final score that we do. I just want to complete the game. For me, I don't even necessarily care about collecting all the treasures. I just want to beat the game. That's my personal mission, is just to get from the beginning to the end. And whatever happens along the way is what happens along the way. Agreed? So we don't need to fucking go for 100% completion, 350% on this. All right. Very good. Would I like instructions? Sure.
Nearby is Colossal Cave, where others have found fortunes in treasure and gold. It is rumored that some who enter are never to be seen again, and magic is said to permeate the cave. I know of places, actions, and things. Take me with you, and I will be your eyes and hands. Keep watch on your compass. It will guide you through the cave. I know of a few special objects, such as a black rod hidden in the cave. Take these objects and carry them in your inventory, which will show you the items you're carrying.
So this first bit, I'm just going to talk over this. Who gives a shit? This first bit is the original Don Woods text intro. This is all new, obviously, where there's given away
are attempting something beyond
aspects of the game.
My capabilities, and should try.
Or is it?
Attack.
I wonder if this is this must be, because it feels so on the nose. Maybe it is. I guess I don't remember the exact start of the Woods version of fucking Adventure.
Take heed that cave passages turn on.
Completely different recording quality.
Yeah.
One room to the north does not always guarantee entering the next from the south. And just because you enter a room one time without issue does not mean that you won't be rechanneled elsewhere the next.
Oop, I accidentally alt-tabbed out of the window, which pauses the game.
I swear this narrator does the audiobooks that my mum listens to on YouTube when she's doing stuff.
For just locating the
It sounds exactly like those.
for getting killed.
Furkung asks, I wonder how much was taken from the 450 or 750 point versions of Advent. None. None. This is a strict recreation of the 350 point version. This is explicitly based on the 350 point version of the game.
Yeah. I also want to highlight their earlier comment. Firkin said that, in their opinion, this is a weird museum piece rather than a game per se. And yeah, I'm getting that vibe so far.
Keep exploring for a while. There's more to discover. Occasionally, I may offer hints if you seem to be having trouble. If I do, I'll warn you in advance how much it will cost your score to accept the hints. Good luck.
Yeah, I'll need it. Oh, before we begin, we can automatically map your journey. Yes! Yes, fucking please. Thank God for automap. This is like the one nice thing this game does. The one...
Okay, so
yeah.
if there are multiple members of your household who each want their own map, can I have the 3 unique maps? Well, there's 3 of us. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, too bad.
Okay. I mean, you know what? Great amount of options. That's always a good thing in the games.
Around you is a forest. A small stream flows out of the building and down a gully.
I'm stuck in the orchestral
Hold
pit.
on.
Please help me.
Let me move the chat up because I realize it's in the way of the subtitles, so I'm just going to move that. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You know what?
You are standing at the end of a road before a small brick.
So,
Maybe I did hear about this game when it came out.
footwork.
A small stream flows.
Yeah, we have
Maybe
freedom
like
of movement
specifically
here.
as a VR game. Yeah.
We move around in the space. I will spoil one of my major complaints about this game.
You're in open forest with a deep valley to one side. You're in a forest. You're in a forest.
These descriptions, they did not write any new prose to refer to specific objects that you may be looking at in most cases. They used the most generic descriptions possible of the environments as if they did not go through the
You're
effort.
in a forest.
There's nothing about this tree, nothing about this stone, nothing about the make and shape of things. It's all just where you are. And by the way, every time you click, that counts as a move. Because it does keep track of your quote-unquote moves. Every time you check anything, that counts as a move in the move counter. Which is fucking stupid.
Yeah, so much worse in old adventure games. Bring you back when you click something and goes, I can't use that. I don't know what that is. I can't use that right now. It won't work.
So I switch between examine to use to open this door. Oh, hey, what's this? Well, sit down for another 2 hours, folks. Let's get the real history from the sources you can fucking trust.
Williams, I've had a long and very rewarding career.
Yeah, they just put this in the fucking game. They just wanted to be completely self-indulgent and just put the fucking documentary in the game to make sure that you
Hell
saw
yeah.
it and know how cool Roberta Williams is and how important she is and blah, 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 blah.
Oh, they should have done the
Anyway,
thing that.
anyway, here's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, that or the thing that indie horror games do. You put Night of the Living Dead in.
Yep. So, I know the first moves I gotta make. Oh, I probably should have examined the lantern.
Lantern.
My bad.
Lantern.
Well, let's get these item descriptions. I want to know what I'm picking up.
There is a bottle of water here.
Thanks.
You're in a forest.
There is food here.
There sure is.
There are some keys on the ground here.
And what about this
Robin-
thing? They clearly took the time to model this thing. What is this?
You're inside a building, a well,
Oh dear.
large spring.
Right.
No, that's what it says on the paper.
You're inside.
Robin does point out, you know, you spent all that time on the history when the game already had one for you.
Yeah, that was silly, man.
You were getting a bit thirsty. Your bottle is now full.
There we go. That's an example of how to
Safe
use an
turn off
item.
your computer.
So we picked up some keys. I skipped a step here where I could travel down the river. By the way, no jump in this, so you have to find the surfaces you can actually walk up. If you ever get down and out, you have to find I can't walk up this. So I really wanted to get back up there.
Yeah,
Luckily,
this is one I think I'm gonna off stream do some research to see how the VR version's played and see how many issues are just poorly converted it to this keyboard and mouse play. Like
I
maybe
would
we'll
love
warp in more
to
than free
know.
movement and all that. Yeah.
I wonder if
The
I
grate is locked.
wonder if I have access to
Set
the
of keys.
3 version.
You have unlocked the grate. Set
Still have the keys. Will I use the keys again? Who's to say? It's still operating under the game's classic logic, so it could be that those keys are just useless to me at this point. I do not remember.
You're in a small chamber beneath a 3x3 steel grate to the surface. A low crawl over cobbles leads inwards to the west. Strange. Looks like others have been here before you. There's nothing there but stinky trash.
So's
Brass
you.
Lantern.
All right, lamp
Lantern
on.
is now lit.
How about this thing? How about this box? They put this box here.
You're in a small chamber beneath a 3x3
fuck off.
steel grate to
Yeah, so, curiosity gets the better of you. It never pays off. It just never pays off to examine stuff in the environment, unless it is the most obvious thing in the world. Like this tire, which has absolutely got to be essential, right?
You're crawling over cobbles in a low passage.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, just...
When- Is there any sense of when the original Colossal Cave adventure is supposed to take place?
Contemporaneously.
Okay.
I mean, it's fantastical. At the end of it, like, I'll spoil the ending to Don Wood's Colossal Cave. You break into an office complex with, like, orcs and cubicles.
There is a small wicker cage discarded nearby.
Now, that one, I knew. It did have a little bit of a shimmer effect on it, so I guess that's what we're looking for, is for that shimmer effect on things we might want to pick up.
Slimes in Rain chat says something that I've been thinking for a bit. Okay, all this narration is really silly when you have eyes to look at things. Yeah, it's... If it was, again, an option to say, hey, do you want the original text?
Crawling in a low passage.
I mean, okay, but like, you ever play a LucasArts game and you have like Guybrush Steve would like look at a bottle of mug and a bottle of grog and he'll like describe it or something? Like that's standard.
Well, yeah, but, we're talking about when they would have been using pixel-based art. Considering
Okay,
this was
I mean-
made with VR in mind, where you can very easily look and examine at things yourself.
I don't know. I mean, then I can point at things like scratches, which is like this, except it's with still screens, but it's very easily recognizable things. But you can look at everything and get some sort of description of it still.
Yeah, it's not the descriptions that are inherently, like, the problem. The problem is that it's just very basic descriptions.
Yes.
In this, that is like, you're standing in a cavern. Great. Can I learn about the objects here? Also...
Tasty food.
Yeah,
it's a map.
Most games...
It's okay.
yeah.
So, like, look how convoluted some of these rooms are. And this is their invention. In the original game, these were just like, you could picture them as squares, basically. Each of these individual rooms was just like, there was no like defined space or width or parameters to it. There were no obstacles to circumnavigate. So what they've done here is made them needlessly convoluted, even though there's only the one exit, and they've populated it with absolutely nothing. Nothing of interest, nothing to interact with. And you just get the same description over and over again anytime you make the mistake of trying to examine something. That's the problem.
Slime General says it's fine in other games, just stilted in this game. And Ozzy Bahaka says Guybrush generally has something amusing to say. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention as well. Like, you would get at least some internal dialogue of like the character and what they feel, and I think that's the, it's not functional dialogue. It's character.
Cass really wants to talk about this word.
Oh, the sick word.
Xyzzy.
There we go. We got the proper pronunciation there. So this exists. This is just a little bit of a fun fact about the original Colossal Cave, or just Adventure, Advent et al., is that this rock existed for the sake of Crowther's daughters, who, or I think it was, I might have this right or slightly wrong, but basically it was introduced early as a means of skipping, like, walking past the initial shed and whatnot. So if you just type this into the text parser, it's a teleport. But, like, it also helps, it serves the purpose of being like a teleport within the context of the game as well, for like sort of like a proto fast travel, as it were. So that's what Xyzzy is, which we heard referenced.
You are in a debris room filled with stuff washed in from the surface. A low, wide passage with cobbles becomes plugged with mud and debris here, but an awkward canyon leads upward and west.
How can a canyon be awkward?
There's a place in California called Xyzzy, but spelled differently.
Tasty food.
Is it going to say tasty food every time I access the map?
I hope so.
Tasty food. Love this map. Num 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 num.
Like, I could go this way, and... Oh, I should, because it looks like there's actually an item there I should probably grab. I should probably examine it.
Rod. Black rod. Black
rod.
Black rod.
I forgot to examine it to get whatever the description is, because I'm just so used to just, like, reflexively picking up stuff, so I'm sorry that I'm not.
So if you pick it up, you can't get that back. That's not great.
Nope, you cannot get that description of it because they removed the text parser. Because they removed the ability to type, like, look at item in inventory or describe item.
Oh, weird. Okay, so it has less functionality than the original.
It also has the possibility I could walk off this and die. I could just take a step off of it and it would kill me, send me back to the beginning of the game. With my items intact. It'd have a system for, like, if you die in the game, it doesn't just end the game outright. But what they've done here is they've introduced an element of platforming of sorts. An element of having to be, like, somewhat precise with your movements that didn't exist in the previous game unless you deliberately typed fall off cliff.
Cass, do me a favor. Go back to your inventory. Check the black rod.
Black rod. Black rod.
I'm seeing something in the instructions here that says there should be a way to examine it from your inventory, but I don't see anything.
Yeah, I feel like that button in the middle should be it, but it's...
Tasty set of key.
Oh, that's 8.
Black.
Can you click, right-click, do anything different?
Rod. Black rod. Black rod. Black rod.
No.
Black rod.
Can you check your map?
Xyzzy. Tasty food.
I just wanted to check that.
Yeah, thank God. Oy vey. And so we progress.
The bird was unafraid when you entered, but as you approach, it becomes disturbed.
It's crazy, fucking disturbed.
I think there may be specific items that once you pick it up,
but as you
will give you the prompt to examine it.
Black bottle set black. Tasty food.
Hey, bird, you want some food?
The little bird won't let you near it. Black
Okay, fine,
rod.
fucking be that way. Nothing.
Oh.
Doesn't work. That combination of items doesn't work. And scene transition. And put us in a position where we can just walk right off the ledge if we just hold down W.
A white mist, usually water, seen from time to time in caverns. It can be found anywhere, but is frequently a sign of a deep pit leading down to water.
By the way, that black rod did work on the bird, but it worked because it's in your inventory. You don't have to use it on the bird in that specific case. It being in your inventory did the thing it needed to do.
Okay, so I should... Is that a hint I should drop it? Because having it is like a net negative?
No, that's not... No, that was... I think that might have been a positive thing. I don't know. But I'm just saying that technically the rod did something passively in that case.
Hey.
You do still need it for something later actively.
Gotcha. Hey, you want to see what characters look like in this game? You want to see the inspired art style? Do you want to see what a team of 35 artists and animators under the lead of Roberta Williams comes up with?
Anticipation's killing me.
Wow, she's beautiful.
Oh no, we missed the effect because of the redeem. Because Crystal's face was in front of him the whole fucking time. Oh man, I should probably think about those fucking redeems, shouldn't I? I should probably think about those the fucking Anyway, he threw like a smoke bomb and disappeared. That's what happened there.
And that's what the characters look like. They're furries. They're blue fox ladies.
There is a large, sparkling nugget of gold here. You could never pull it out, no matter how hard you try.
Okay, fine,
Yeah,
be that
can't
way.
get you, Hammer.
Make fun of my gains, why don't you? You won't get it up the steps.
It says you won't get it up the steps.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
Okay.
So, I'm sure. I'm guessing you have a guide up right now, Sharky.
I have several.
Okay. Correct me if I am wrong. Correct me if I am telling tales out of school. So what I want to do here is I want to walk in this direction. It'll trigger like
Dwarf, watch out!
it'll trigger this cutscene, this awful animation.
Oh, I missed.
Now I need to collect
In
this.
short time, your fate will be sealed, Superman.
Fuck's sake.
Black,
Of course.
taste.
What should I get rid of? What is safe to get rid of at this point? Do I need the keys still?
I'm looking for. Okay,
Large gold nugget.
you got the gold nugget
Yes.
and think through. Okay, it says right now that your inventory should contain keys, a lit lantern.
Brass.
You should have a bird in a cage. You didn't do that yet.
I forgot to put the bird in the cage. Well, that doesn't matter. It's still the inventory slot. What else should I have?
Black rod, axe, and gold nugget. So
I don't need the
didn't mention
water
that'd be the-
or the food.
You don't need the water or the food right now.
Tasty food. Mmm. The food is rather
Okay.
tasty.
Here's my thinking. I have the axe, which means I can combat the dwarves. I know that's a mechanic. Is that you need that to fight the dwarves off. If I try to go up the steps, the message indicates that I will be attacked by dwarves.
That's a spicy meatball.
Do they want me to use Xyzzy to teleport past the stairs so I can drop the gold nugget off in the shed?
That I don't have information on. This is a very straightforward this, and this guide.
Right, so there's not going to be much room for creativity. Okay, I want to... Let's troubleshoot this. Let's figure this out in real time. I want to experiment as I would.
Those steps are unclimbable while carrying that heavy gold nugget.
Oh, it's as simple as that.
Xyzzy.
Okay.
Xyzzy. There's nothing to do with it here.
Huh? I thought I was supposed to
If you
teleport me
drop
back.
something in the environment, does it just stay there?
Large.
Yeah, I was about to ask that.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Which would make sense in the original context. So you could just
End of a
drop the gold nugget, go upstairs,
Get the
and then
bird.
come back.
Open.
Yeah.
Large
Yeah, that makes sense.
nugget. Dropping things you're carrying requires a nice, wide, flat place to put them. Large gold.
Okay, fine, be that way. Better still be there. Oh wait, I just realized.
Keys. Black rod.
We're not going to hear the map being called
Yeah.
tasty food anymore. Blah Hat's pointed out in chat.
That's a shame.
Oh,
Yeah, I was
end of an
thinking
era.
that.
Yeah, I walked right past that bird being like, I don't have anything I can use to interact with this
Wicker
thing.
cage. The little bird won't let you near it. The bird was unafraid when you entered, but as you approach, it becomes disturbed.
Now, I did give you all the clues already.
Catch the bird. I can give you a hint, but it will cost you 2 points. Touch the glowing bird.
Or I can give you the hint for free.
The glow disappears.
Yeah, I don't want to cost my points. Okay.
Okay. Remember what I said about the black rod?
Rod.
I said actively using it doesn't do anything, but having it in your inventory did interact with the bird.
That's a bad hint. Should I drop it or not? That's the hint I need.
You should drop it. Having inventory is why the bird is afraid of you.
Wicker cage.
Okay.
Oh,
You have captured the bird.
how are you supposed to figure that out?
I mean, I guess it's what I would have. I mean, the thing is that it doesn't give you the hint for what the black rod does, what effect it has, because we missed out on the look prompt on it earlier that may have potentially provided a hint on that.
Yeah.
So we missed
This
that.
is a black rod that says "kill all birds" on it.
That would have helped. It would have helped to have known that. That's all I'm saying. Carmen
I
says,
looked
that's a bad hint. What I need is a solution. Yes, that is my mode of thinking. I'm sad to say. I'm very stupid.
I looked up on the Meta store for Colossal Cave in 3D. It is $25.
They
I
have
will
dropped the
not be-
price on this.
Yeah.
Was
I will not
40.
be buying it to try it out, but there is a free trial, so maybe between now and then, I'll do the free trial.
Yeah, I
Seen
think on
3D.
the Steam page for that, if it's the same free trial, it says it's about 20% of the game. Yeah,
There's
'cause
almost.
that's
I want to say there's almost atmosphere here, right? They're trying.
There must be a way to cross this fissure.
The descriptions are doing absolutely none of the heavy lifting. I mean, what is happening here is, the team of artists had to come up with like their interpretations. They used their imagination to really like explore these very basic descriptions of these rooms and try to imagine what, like their childhood vision of this might be. And I appreciate that element of it. On the other hand, this game is ugly as sin.
Yeah.
On the other hand, this is not a looker of a game. I alluded it to with the character animations, the dwarves and whatnot, but it's like the most generic fantasy renderings. I know they planned on using the Unity Asset Store in a very early phase of development. I'm not entirely unconvinced that they didn't just use Unity Asset Store mods at a certain point for some of this shit.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was. I did see an earlier comment mention, speculating that the visual quality of this is because of, the hardware would have been made for the Quest 2. But I'm pretty sure stuff of like higher visual fidelity and even gameplay fidelity would have been available.
Oh, absolutely.
Again, even just that Resident Evil 4 version that Mena made. Because it isn't... Oh, it's that whole Mountain King room. Yeah.
You're in the Hall of the Mountain King, with passages off in 5 directions.
Man, this is as good as they can render humans. Man, the graphics really are bad in this game.
Yeah.
This is going to get really anxiety-inducing real soon.
Could this have been the king's throne?
Can I sit on it?
Oh, never mind.
Can I interact
fading
with it?
out.
Oh, cowards. Yeah, I guess that's the end of that song. All right, so let me look at the map.
Set of keys.
Yes, 5 directions, including the tomb room. We do the tomb room.
So,
a huge green little dwarf's axe.
A huge green dwarf's axe.
The snake won't work and is very dangerous.
Okay, fuck that then.
All right, goodbye.
Well, problem solved.
Little bird in a cage. Dwarf's axe. Dwarf's...
I just want to make sure it's not equipped anymore. Okay, good. All right, so I guess I'll start trying all the passageways.
Okay, and then you let me know if you want to know what to do.
Okay, how about this way? Okay, how about this way? You gotta exhaust all possible options first.
Find all possible snakes.
Or it is just one snake teleporting, just to
taunt you.
This is the next thing I am trying. Okay.
I'm going to tell you, a bad idea.
Well, this is something we may have to try and figure out as we play, but I do wonder...
Black Rod.
With, the origins this has, how this game deals with, say, items that
little bird in a cage.
are useless after a certain point.
Little bird in a cage.
Here.
That don't get used up, technically.
The little bird attacks the green snake, and in an astounding flurry, drives the snake away.
Oh. That's not how I was expecting that to go. Good for you, little bird.
Don't mind if I do that. Clear up all the passageways. Please say yes. Yes.
Sorry, you'll need to drop something before you can carry anything
for
more.
fuck's sake. Love limited inventory space. They couldn't have...
Black Rod. Wicker Cage.
Can I leave this behind?
You have jumped so far ahead in what you're supposed to be doing that I do not know.
Ay. Okay. So obviously, this is the difficulty of following a guide when every guide for this game is written to be as efficient as possible.
I see it. I see it now.
Wicker Cage.
I just need to know if the wicker cage gets used.
Check the other passages. Make sure that snakes aren't appearing in them.
I think we're clear.
Then yeah, you can get rid of the cage.
Very good. Oh, look at all this treasure.
Yeah, so... This game, leaves it entirely on you to figure out when key items aren't used anymore, which I'm not a fan of.
Which sucks. That's one of the things they can modernize to make the game so much easier and more accessible to players. Like, but their reluctance to make any sort of change is ultimately like a factor in who can get how much out of this game or what have you.
Jewelry. Brass bottle of water.
Should I just leave behind the bottle of water? I know I'm not meant to have it in my inventory at this point.
You're not meant to have any inventory at this point, but put it somewhere where you're going to remember it, because you will need it later.
Bottle of water.
I have an idea.
Oh. Right, does this game show you where you left items?
I somehow doubt it, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
And I put
That's
this
why I would suggest having one centralized place where it's like, this is where I keep my stuff.
We're gonna fucking Res Evil 0 this game, I guess. And even that game actually shows you where you left stuff.
Set of keys.
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Yes,
Hey,
they actually do it. Say
Okay,
something
but
nice. They actually did it. They actually showed on the map where we left the thing.
Yeah.
That
it doesn't
is good.
Look like it shows stuff that you've seen but not picked up, though.
Yeah.
Unless that's what the +2 meant.
Precious.
I would love to just drop all this treasure off in the shed room at the very beginning, but
Xyzzy.
I'm assuming Xyzzy ain't gonna work. I'm assuming the gold nugget precludes us from going up the stairs. So, what does the guide recommend, Sharky? In the interest of saving time.
I am not sure yet.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out, like, at what point are they like, okay, put down stuff.
Okay. I noticed that +2 changed to +1, so maybe that does indicate that there are other items in this room.
Yeah.
Xyzzy. That won't work.
Xyzzy.
You're in the hole of the Mountain King.
Of course it won't
Passage
work.
is off in 5 directions.
Because, it's my tendency is like, well, my inventory is full. This is a great time to retreat back to the beginning and, like, do something with the stuff I got. Put stuff away. But instead, I'll just press forward knowing that I can't pick anything up, really, unless I do some inventory hot swapping.
Secret canyon which runs east and west. It crosses over a very tight canyon 15 feet below. If you go down,
I can clean up your...
to get back up.
Don't go further.
Okay.
Let's do something right now to cross it off the list and get rid of an item in your inventory you won't need after this.
Okay.
Because we're going to use the black rod. So you don't have to keep doing it. So you're going to go back. Remember that bridge that was, or that chasm that was like, it's a chasm.
Oh, duh.
You need to go there.
Yep. Parses. It's just, I'll say this too, because I think there's going to be people who are like, diehard fans of text adventures who like, how could you not think to use the wand, to use every item on your inventory on every opportunity that there is? Because that is the way to play adventure games of this era, is just anytime you're presented with anything, you test out every single one of your items and see what happens. Here's the problem. This ain't a text adventure anymore. It's a point and click parading as like an actual 3D game. So I don't necessarily think of these as points of interest or things to be interacted with. When you put them in 3D space like this, I'm not thinking about this chasm as something to be interacted with. I just see the negative space when I see this in 3D. And so,
I'm seeing that it's obviously supposed to be some sort of bridge.
Yeah.
Like, eventually, I would probably test this out. The thing with these games is, like, the way you play it is eventually you test things out and you realize, oh, okay. Wait, now you can get rid of the rod.
Black rod.
I don't know. I just think this perspective that this version of this does something to where I'm not thinking about this in the way that I would the original version of the game presented in text, that it's making me less curious. It's making me less keen to interact with things.
Well, because a big difference, is when you go into an area, I don't know how Colossal Cave did it specifically, if you had to use the look command or if just when you went into a room it said, here's all the things in the room.
They would give
that's
you...
a very different,
They would either give you the basic description or say what the points of interest are. Then you can examine those points of interest to get a full description of the room. It depends on the game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But that's such a different change to have a literal list and then a you have to look around and figure out what the things are. Like, that is a fundamental difference of text and visual-based adventure games.
You're at the west end of the Hall of Mists. A low, wide crawl continues west, and another to the north. To the south, you spy a little passage up off the floor.
How about this? Can I interact with the scale?
The dwarves weigh their diamonds here.
Okay,
Several
good.
Diamonds. There's nothing happens.
From this, you can just go back to the Mountain King Hall.
Okay.
We were coming here at the moment just to get the
Sure.
diamonds.
There is a threatening dwarf. A sharp knife is thrown. It missed.
Thank God for that. These would have been RNG, by the way, whether you got hit or not.
You have vanquished a little dwarf.
See, I was going to say jangle the keys and distract him. I'll forget what he was doing.
And that's combat in this game.
You're gonna want to go back to where you came, and I don't think you can pick up.
No.
That is useless right now.
It disappears. And yeah, Joe Real points out, dang, you're just stealing from these dwarves. Yeah, this is just like a game about like just wandering into a place, robbing them blind, killing them, and then just walking out. It's it is.
I'm trying to remember what was
strange.
Was it the Pajama Sam adventure games where they wrote the dialogue to make it so that he's always borrowing the items because they didn't want to make it seem like he was stealing?
Yeah. By the way, I forgot you could sprint in this game. I forgot that they added a sprint button, so I saw.
Hey,
while you're here, check your inventory. I'll tell you what you need to have in here.
Diamonds.
Yes, you need several diamonds. You need keys, the lantern, the axe, gold, diamonds, jewelry, and coins.
That's everything.
Hey, that's
all
everything.
right. Then I'll tell you right now to head north.
Okay.
You can figure out where north is.
I can do that. We have the compass
yep,
at the
I
top
see
of the
it.
screen, yeah.
And it says, do not interact with the silver.
There are bars of silver here.
I just looked at it. I didn't pick it up. Hey, it's Y2.
It says Y2.
Beautiful. Can I...
Right.
It says Y2.
Y2, not 4.
Now, I think you leave this room and go back in it several times. I think. Maybe?
I wouldn't touch that. You could get electrocuted.
Okay, fine. Spoil my
I'm
fun,
reading
why
this
don't you?
correctly.
Just kidding. Let me do it. Let me do it.
I wouldn't touch. That's. I wouldn't touch.
No fun.
You could get electrocuted.
Huh?
Hello. It's a mirror. I guess.
The shadowy figure seems to be trying to attract your attention.
Oh, that's a weird way to do that.
There's nothing to do with it here.
Go back.
Axe. That won't work here.
Shit.
Go back to the room of Y2. Alright, I'll tell you what the guy says specifically. Continuously enter Y2 room until learning Plugh.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You hear the word Plugh.
Plugh, sorry.
Yes.
This Plugh.
And now that you have Plugh, you can say it.
Plugh. Plugh. You feel a strange pulling sensation.
And there's
now-
fast travel. Yes.
You're back in the well house.
Now you can drop off all your treasure.
This is a
Oh, there you go.
to you.
Diamonds.
Thank you for the subscription, by the way. And yes, now we can begin to see
Rare coins.
this room start to fill out.
Gold nugget.
Oh god, this is just Resident Evil 0.
Except there are designated places, and this is like where they ultimately reside. Like
Oh,
having
yeah, having
brought
the
them back
teleport,
here.
yeah.
Check your
Yeah, no,
inventory
that's-
one more time. You did the key.
Hmm.
I guess you. Where did we need the key for?
That was to open the very first grate that started off this adventure.
What's weird to me is
Xyzzy.
drop the keys in the house. Don't before you Plugh out of here.
Keys.
All right.
And what you should be getting is you can get it. You need the bottle of water now,
son of
or
a
you
bitch.
need to get the bottle of water now.
Plugh. You
Well, we know where it is.
Yes, we do. I did make a mental note.
Okay. While
for-
you're pluing yourselves, I just need to take a very quick BRB just because we're going a bit longer.
Copy. Furkung has a comment in chat. Could you read that for me, Charky, real quick while I...
Sure. They say, honestly, it's interesting because I think it's the main challenge that Roberta Williams had as designer. What is the main challenge? Let me get some context.
Yeah,
there.
that's what I was curious about, to see if they could elaborate on that. In the meantime, I'm going to attempt to explore a little bit.
Okay.
We still have our shadow self.
I think this is in reference to Magic Meows, who said, oh, this is a chain of comments. All right, Furkung says, I 1000% agree that the game being a different type totally changes the way you interact with it. Magic Meow says, yeah, I actually totally get what Cass means about how making this game have free movement instead of point and click makes you think about points of interest differently, to which Furkung said, it's interesting because I think it's the main challenge that Roberta Williams had as a designer,
Yes,
which
okay,
was
that makes
moving
sense.
from point and click to anything else.
I want to take the silver now.
I think the thing still, does it still say no?
Let's find out.
me
I mean,
check.
I saved. I quick saved. Not dead.
I don't know if you're dead man walking though.
You see a sturdy ladder.
Automated. Slime in chat
Oh,
says you will
I
die
see
in
why.
7
It's-
days now.
No, it's to save you from problems
Problems, you say?
later. So when you looked at it, that set you down a path already. So there's a timer that happens when you get the 15th and final treasure in the game, or when you see
The
15th
pirate.
treasure. Yes. So that, by not looking at the silver, that means it's way easier to deal with that shit down the line.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll,
There are cracks everywhere, but you may be able to slip through this one.
Well, honestly, if you have the silver,
You stumble
wouldn't-
around in the dark and seem to have returned where you started. Don't
you might want to like just deposit it so it's not eating inventory space.
yeah, that parses. Can I just plue from anywhere?
That is useful.
No, but it has to be in the dedicated
Nope.
room, which makes sense,
Yes.
yeah. Hold on a second, though. Let me do a little bit more spelunking.
You're in the bottom of a small pit with a little stream, which enters and exits through tiny slits.
I'm treating this as I would like treat a game of this vintage, which is assuming that any deviance or wrong decision or like I'm gonna try this thing real quick before I move on could cause you either an instant loss or just a huge headache way later.
Probably, which is antiquated, obsolete fucking game design. But what is
also
this
the
game
intended purpose.
if not? Yeah.
Yes.
What is this game?
It would
not
be
building?
kind of like having like a warhead candy and going, oh, why is this sour? Shit. Ugh.
Did you plued all over the place while I was gone?
Yeah, I did.
Bars of silver.
Plued like no one's
Gotta
ever
be a
plued
better way
before.
to say that.
Yep.
Plugh.
Carmen in chat says, I didn't even think about this game having soft locks. I think it's a little less egregious than, you know, let's say a Sierra adventure game. And Roberta did not go the step of like stamping her authorial, putting soft locks into the game, or deviating too much from the intention from the original in this. Almost to its detriment, of course, but
Yeah. That is probably the main thing I know about the Kingdom Quest games is the soft locks and the random deaths, to the point where like there's like a sicko mentality where like that's what people want for some, where they're like, oh yeah, I'm here for the random deaths and the stupid bullshit.
Sometimes they're
which is
funny.
interesting.
Passage.
Yeah, yeah.
To the east is a crawl. To the west is a large passage. Above, you see a hole.
Hey, descriptor, describe this. What am I seeing?
A forest.
Enters through a 2-inch slit.
This is the problem with just having the fucking basic room descriptions be the only thing you get. What about that thing? What about that thing? No observations
know.
on that thing? That doesn't
I don't know,
matter.
player. You have some goddamn eyeballs, don't you? You figure this shit out.
You're in a pit by a stream flowing between tiny...
I don't have anything I can really use.
Oh, I guess you're not supposed to be here yet.
Just the inability to, like, they put moving bits into the world, and then you have to pretend that they don't exist. You just have to act like you don't see them. You have to act like, you know, and you have to constantly question, is this world building? Is this environmental? Is this an effect? Is this something I need to be cognizant of? And just not knowing. Unless you are, like, slavishly devoted to the original game.
I think the idea is going to be, like, in terms of a how you're supposed to play this sort of point of view, is that you would spend a lot of time at this, plugging away, poking at things, seeing what works and what doesn't, and, like, spending a good amount of hours, like, learning this on your own, as opposed to what we're doing, which is trying to put on an expedient show.
Yes. Which is,
we are playing it in not the technically correct way.
Yes, but it is at least a way that demonstrates what the game is and allows me to pontificate out loud about issues I would be thinking of, even without the benefit of a guide. I'm thinking out loud, like, just like, that would be my instant reaction to that on a real playthrough where I don't have someone giving me a guide. I would look at that and think, what is that? And, you know...
Well, I think that's also, like, the intended point, is to look at that and go, what is that?
But, again, you're missing the problem and the point here, which is that I can't examine it. I can't click on it while it's animating and get any semblance or clue or indication as to whether or not it's an element that my character sees, or that is just an effect that they added for this 2023 Colossal Adventure reboot.
Okay, we're more on the same page now. I get more what you're saying.
They're adding flourishes and whimsy and stuff, and not flagging whether or not that is something that I should have been able to examine and flag and observe and interact with.
No, okay. You know, I'm picking up what you're putting down now. Yeah, it would have been better if they had added more text that would be more relevant to things that they have added there.
Yes.
With the ability to be like, even it's like, oh, you seem to see that thing, like, fly down into a little hole or whatever. It's like, well, at least that gives me some context of hole.
Yes. Also, I do believe that the cracks up there, that if I dropped everything from my inventory, I'd be able to pass through that. That's just my memories of this. And I think that is based off of the connecting cavern that Patricia Crowther passed through. Is what that crack up there was, if memory serves, unless that is something later in the game. But, you know, I'm just exploring right now. I'm just trying to dig the vibe.
You're in Bedquilt, a long east-west passage with holes everywhere.
Oh, great.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. So many directions I could potentially travel. Let's look at the map. Well, you know, thank God we have the map, right? Mm-hmm. Thank fucking God we have this. I don't want to be here. Yeah. I don't want to be there. I don't even want to bang my head against that right now. Can I examine anything else?
Will be sealed, Superman.
Yeah. No, we're not even at the maze yet.
No, we're not in the Hall of Identical Rooms or whatever the fuck it's called, which is one of the worst puzzles ever conceived in classic adventure games. It was there from the start. The bullshit was always there. Scenic looking room. Nice looking room. Let's get a description of the room.
You're in an arched hall. A coral passage once continued up and east from here, but is now blocked by debris. The air smells of seawater.
So again, I appreciate that from that brief bit of description written by Don Woods in his interpretation of Willie Crowther's original dry, bare bones exploration and explanations, that the art team says, let's go to town with our imagination on this. Let's draw it out. Let's make a coral-themed room with ambiance and everything. I like putting a visual to this stuff, conceptually. I think something I'm coming to terms with is that the movement is completely superfluous and also bad. That adding this element of having to move around the space rather than just having it be individual screens. I would rather be anchored in place in a set point in each room, given the ability to look around and then be like, click here and get mist teleported over to the next section, like that, right?
With bits of shells and
You ever play Real Mist?
Yes, and it's pointless.
This is an old coral passage. It's now blocked by debris. Dwarf's axe.
No, I want to see if I can mine. But
those
no.
are ones I've always wanted to go back to, because I only know those mostly by reputation as well.
Do me a favor and check your. Thank you. So you're in that room there.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have a title?
The shell
room.
The shell room. Okay, I at least know where that is now.
And there is a passageway here that seems to resolve in another dead end.
You're in a cul-de-sac.
That's what they call it.
You're in a cul-de-sac.
And it looks like there is nothing here. Which, you know, I'm going to grant this. I'm going to remember this. The original game is full of dead ends in rooms that are just there because they were there in the original cave. Because William Crowther found these dead ends, and there's not necessarily anything to do in them. We don't need to remember this room or come back to it. It's just there because a cave would have lots of dead ends and stuff. That does not, for a great adventure game, make, in my mind, to have completely pointless empty rooms just here, there, and everywhere. You would want each room to have some sort of purpose, some sort of thing you can examine or do, even if it's not necessary to the progression, to at least have something here. And I guess the something here is that we can appreciate it for all its beauty now. It's rendered in beautiful 3D. But, I don't know. To me, that's just antiquated design.
I mean, what is this game if not
the most antiquated design? Yeah.
Yes.
And which therein lies the problem of remaking this game. Almost completely verbatim.
But I mean, it is what it says it is.
Yeah, you can't deny that.
It's like, again, you see the bag that says dead bird in the fridge, you open it up, I don't know what you're expecting.
I'm
Somehow
more
multiple.
taking it as a point that, did this game need to be remade? You know?
I mean, someone wanted to do it. Ken wanted to do it.
Unfortunately, nothing you can use, though.
Yeah,
and Roberta was like, well, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it fucking right.
Looks like the Wit Construction Company, whoever they are.
I guess it's like in the, what you define as remake in that sense. Like, I think you could have took, like, the bare
Dwarfs
outline of, like, what happens through the game and made a version of this that didn't play so strictly like the original.
There is a threatening dwarf.
Actually, make an adaptation.
It missed. You have vanquished a little dwarf.
Good, I hated that guy. Thank you.
And the other guy didn't even wake up.
Please
Somehow
take a
ended up with,
monoblock chair and sit with me.
Oh. I love he's got the fucking plastic chair.
It's got
Like
the
all the
vertical throne.
chairs.
Incredible animation. Okay, I guess
There's a recent issue of Spelunker Today magazine here.
Ooh.
I guess I will.
Yeah, well, I know you're a fan of Spelunker, Casso.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I am the Splunker defender. I guess Sharky is too. I guess we both are, aren't we? You know,
Spelunker? Oh, I hate Spelunker.
You like
the original
Spelunker Party though. You like what
Spelunker
Spelunker
Party.
became.
Yeah.
Spelunker Today.
Oh, Furkung asks, can you read it?
I'm afraid the magazine is written in Dwarvish.
Obviously. No. Yeah.
I heard
no,
Dwarves
can't.
is famous these days.
Yeah. It's getting pretty popular.
What did Roberta mean by that? What did she mean by that when she said that?
I'm learning Spanish, which is pretty famous these days.
Did she mean to say that it's in vogue for people to learn Spanish? Is what she
Maybe
meant to
it's
say.
Either that, or as everyone knows, I'm learning Spanish. One or the other.
So
Yeah, or just the dumb version of just the language. Oh, it's pretty underground and unknown, and now it's the hip new language. I prefer to assume it's that because that's funny.
I'll say, as far as the guide goes, not even close to where we should be.
Yeah, you know what?
According to the order of this guide.
I want fucking...
You crawled around in some little holes and found your way blocked by a recent cave-in. You're now back in the main passage.
Uh-oh.
So we're lost woodsing this shit.
Yes, we are.
You've crawled around in some little... You've crawled around...
Ah, well, that's my question. Does this have a Lost Woods indication of where to go? Because in the Lost Woods, at least in I know not original. Okay, how does Lost Woods work in the original Legend of Zelda? Because I actually don't know.
There's a certain route that you need to take.
Error it.
Yeah, you have to
But
trial
it's
and
trial
error
and
it.
error.
And eventually it's like a
Yeah.
sequence of like 3 moves you need to make.
Crawled around in some
But they give you
Okay.
some indication when you make the correct moves.
Don't give up. Keep
Yeah,
trying.
I mean, it is giving you an indication when you've made the wrong move.
Okay. I see Outlet and chat mention audio now. That's Ocarina of Time, which is my reference point.
I'm
then
thinking
Shochu.
original Legend of Zelda.
Escape wits end.
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
And I got out.
But it's good to mention both because that shows you an advancement in design to take, like the 2D Legend of Zelda, move it into 3D, and actually give some sort of thing to track if you're going to do that kind of repeating room maze design thing.
Whereas back in the day, the puzzle was just bang your head against all the directions until you make the right move in the right place, or otherwise die, suffer forever. Okay, I remember this room, right? Yep, aqueduct room, where I absolutely do not want to be. These connect to each other. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here and go back.
Johnny, you have the guide that I linked to, right?
Let me get it open up.
Because I might need to step away for a few minutes
Sure.
in case Cass wants to get advice.
If you can tell me what. Oh no, never mind. That's the point.
The last thing we did that was on track with this guide was, you see the heading first beanstalk watering?
Yep.
Yep, that's technically the next thing if going by the order of this guide. You don't have to tell Cass immediately. If they
No,
want to
tell
figure
me
this out,
immediately. Let's get me back on track here, because I feel like this
Okay.
whole diversion
So
here.
from all the way back when you were in the Y2 room.
I'm on my
let's
way
see.
there. I'm there.
Okay, so I'm reading this.
Brass lantern.
It says head south down the ladder to Bed Quilt. West and down the ladder to Complex Junction.
Wait. Hold on. So from Y2.
From the Y2 area, there was a ladder that went down.
Yes, which I just came up from. So back down I go.
Right. You're trying to orient ourselves here.
All right.
West and down the ladder to Complex Junction.
So I was here. I was where I needed to be. I did accidentally wander into where I needed to be previously. And now I have to sit through this ladder animation again because it was so nice the first time.
All right, west to Bed Quilt.
This is Bed Quilt.
All right, and west to Two Pit regions.
With holes everywhere.
Okay. You see, I don't like aimless exploration. I don't like not being guided. I don't like having so many choices. I have choice anxiety when it comes to stuff. That's another reason I bounce off of old adventure games, is giving me like 7 different paths to choose. And I'm just like, what's the most efficient one? Am I going to miss? I'm going to need to backtrack. Am I going to need to keep like going around in circles, coming back to this hub room? And I look at this room and it's the same goddamn thing. It's the same shit.
So you're going to head west to Two Pit room?
Hang on. What's in your inventory?
Inventory's fine.
Yep.
Spelunker today.
Just good to check in case we get too far.
Honestly, we have more than we need at the moment, but
which could be a
we'll cross
problem in and
that
of
bridge when it
itself.
comes to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so west to Two Pit room. Now, when they say west to Two Pit room, they must mean this.
Yes. And then
You're at the east end of a two-pit room.
Yep.
The floor here is littered with thin rock slabs, which make it easy to descend the pits. There is a path bypassing the pits to connect paths.
in the west of this room, there's a plant, and you're going to use your bottle of water on it.
all over, but there is a big one on the wall directly over the west pit, too high to reach.
I mean, it's an elaborate room to its detriment. Like, okay, you told me... I did find it. And I guess that is, like, highlighted enough. I mean, you wouldn't see it entering the room because of the elevation. Whereas, think about the original game. You'd walk into this room, There would just be the one spot, the one central anchor point. You would hit look, and it would tell you everything you need to know. In this version, you need to also be able to like explore and navigate and stumble around the dark, and delineate what is scenery, what is not.
There is a tiny little plant in the pit, murmuring, "Water, water, bottle of water."
No, don't drink it.
I was gonna drink it in front of it just to taunt it.
The plant spurts into furious growth for a few seconds.
Anyway, don't get rid of the bottle because you'll need it later.
Oh.
Water.
Oh, I'm grown up now. Water.
Yeah, you're gonna need to.
Full of oil.
Not with that. Don't water with that.
All right, I'll drink the oil. No, I can pour it out.
Bottle
Yeah, you're gonna want to pour it out. You don't need oil right now.
of oil. You pour the oil on the ground.
Now do that a bunch more times and lead it all the way to the plant, and then flick a cigarette onto it. So it.
Okay. So
now
I would
go back to
assume.
the cheese.
Oh, not climb up that or do anything with it?
No, it's too small right now. And you hear it's still going water, water.
Right. Fair enough. The Swiss cheese room. We've returned.
Yeah.
I like
If you
this
really
next
wanted
step.
to, you could go all the way back, get water now, and then come back here. But there's like better ways to do that.
Okay, let's be more efficient because, I
Yes.
could see myself just like going all the way back, getting the water, being like, well, this thing just wants more water, right? So just keep coming back and doing that. But I'm sure there's another place I can find water in the cave. Is the thought I would have.
Let's go with that thought. Anyway, northwest to Orient.
And remember, folks, if you're complaining about us losing the sense of adventure here, we're trying to get this fucking game done in a reasonable amount of time, and it also like save you tons of backtracking. Know that eventually we'd explore these rooms. If I was forced at gunpoint to play this game, which is about the only way I would play this game other than playing it for the show, that I would eventually exhaust my options, right? We're just cutting down on the process. I can still visualize the process of going through all these steps individually without the benefit of a guide. I've been through this this type of trial and error before.
So I thought it might have meant like orientation.
Asian cave drawings cover the walls. A gently
Jesus fucking Christ.
To the north, another passage leads south.
Yeah, I was under the impression it might mean like orientation room, but no.
Yeah.
There is a threatening dwarf. A sharp knife is thrown. It missed.
It always seems
God,
to
it
miss.
didn't look like it missed.
Vanquished a little dwarf.
Isn't it exciting to have to do that every like few rooms? Isn't that like a satisfying combat loop?
There is a delicate, precious Ming vase here.
Don't mind if I do.
This is the Orient room.
Nice glockenspiel sweep sound effect there. Oh, we did get to say something nice from my headful.
Instrument for meditative journeys.
Oh shit.
In ancient times, pots had been placed here, perhaps for food and drink.
See, I'm learning about Asian history that they used pots for perhaps food and drink. The more you know. W32 My Doom says, was this in the original? Yes, without the music, I would imagine. But
nothing happens.
Can I?
I mean, there's a little bit of charm of just seeing how these areas have been interpreted, and some of it seems rendered okay. Like obviously the weakest stuff we've seen is probably the character models and some of the objects.
Yes, I
Johnny,
want to explore a little bit, but
right.
just find in the guide where we are right now.
Yeah.
Johnny, do you know where in the guide we are right now? Are you following what I was saying? Okay, good, because I need to walk away for a little bit too. I'll be back.
I wound up going north, I believe, for whatever that may be worth.
I thought you went west.
Maybe I went west. Who's to say? I came out facing
heard,
north, so it's hard to say.
Yeah, I've heard that life is peaceful there in the open air.
Actually, if you check the map, that would.
Brass lantern.
Did that help?
You are. What's that label say?
To
large
low room.
Yeah.
And it has four possible ways to go. One of them is backwards. One of them is blocked, no access.
Oh, okay.
So I can tell you did not go north.
Okay.
Yeah. Troll seems to be like a completely different area, I think, than
Oops, I think I went backwards.
we want to be. No,
wait.
honestly.
Brass lantern.
Oh, I
I'll
did
be
not
back.
go backwards. I went back to the 2-pit room, which I'm guessing is just a connecting room for like a bunch of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that it's basically like a redundant room of sorts. Or, you know, you can think about it as a shortcut room.
Around in some little holes and wound up back in the main passage.
Alright, so if I come from up there, it just feeds me in a loop. If I go down, that's the anteroom. If I go east, that's the complex junction. West is Two-Pit, north is Troll. The one place I haven't checked is south on this. So let me just go ahead and do that. Just to...
You've crawled around in some little holes and wound up back in the main passage.
Fucking annoying. Why have these that loop back? Why have the extra rooms if they just feed back into the room? Just to intimidate me with how many choices I have. And again, you don't blame Roberta Williams for that. You blame William Crowther. You blame how antiquated this whole thing is. That this is what passed for mystery and exploration was just circuitous loops. And you know, doesn't hold up. It didn't have to. It wasn't built to hold up. It was built to fascinate and impress at a very particular moment in time. It was meant to amuse children, which I don't see how it did that necessarily. But like the fact it is being revived and dusted off
a dead end
is such a strange, unnecessary, pointless, counterintuitive, dumb idea for the reasons we explained. And especially for, like, Ken and Roberta Williams, who had a reputation, who had built that reputation on the back of, like, a very particular kind of adventure game, and to see them eschew that style in favor of this absolutely primitive thing. I get that the idea was to get a little bit of rub from the reputation, the classical historical reputation of this, and weave themselves into the tapestry of classic games history, as I mentioned, even more so than they were already. But this is just regressive. This is just them taking a step back. This is them demonstrating nothing that they could have potentially learned, and simply demonstrating that they have the capacity to do what? To put a 3D wrapper on a text adventure?
Payment!
I mean...
You're on one side of a large...
Did its mission statement, I guess.
A white mist rises up from below to obscure much of the far side. A southwest path leads away from the chasm into a winding corridor.
Are they really going to make me? I can't just jump over this. I can't just skip the queue here. All this so I can get killed by a troll.
Oh, that'd be pretty uncouth of you.
Owlette says if the narration text had been modernized and made fun, it would have set a much better tone.
From beneath the bridge and blocks your way.
The dwarf throws a dagger at you. Well, that just happened.
Oh, he was showing payment.
Yes.
Axe. Spelunker today.
Here.
That doesn't interest the troll.
Payment.
Offer.
Pay you with this.
Offer Carrick a cold one.
Good workmanship, but not valuable enough.
That's nice of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's polite at least.
I mean, I was trying to kill him.
To a degree.
I was trying to just murk his ass, and he didn't even flag it. He didn't even recognize it. So that's lovely. Yeah. I'll just run away now.
Yeah, currently we can't pay the troll toll.
Chasm.
I'll never get into that boy's soul.
Obscure much of the far side. A southwest path leads away from the chasm into a
Alright. So I'm assuming back to the Orient room, as they so eloquently put it. Also, you know, not having like your compass, your little arrow demonstrating where you are inside the room.
I mean, you can divine that from your compass as well.
Yes, I could.
Yeah, at least there is the compass.
Like, but here's the problem, okay? Here's the problem with what you just said. I want to go east. This could be east. It could resolve in east. Ultimately, that was southeast, but I wouldn't know unless I traveled. Oh, wait.
Brass lantern.
That was east.
Yes.
But I want to show you the problem. I want to backtrack here. Is that because you have both an east and a southeast exit, because this is also east. This is east. What I did before was not east. This is actually east. and because they're only 1 degree removed on the compass, but because they had to draw it in 3D space, you can walk into the wrong thing.
You look at the layout of the room in 3D space, you compare it to the map, and you compare like how the walls look, and you're like, well, okay, well, where does this hole seem to be relative to this hole and this door?
But you know that necessitates is this keeping switching between the map and that to be like, okay, where am I in this? Where they could have just put the arrow pointing to show you which one you are facing towards, or made the rooms bigger. Which I'm not saying this is a good idea. There's a million things they could have done from a level design standpoint to have you do less moving around in circles here.
I think it's intent. It's like I feel like, okay, that's how the game wants to do it.
That's how this game wants to do it. But even in its original design, it's not how they wanted to do it. It's not true to the original design, which just used compass directions to be like, there's 8 possible directions you can move in any room. By creating it in 3D space, they have made it infinitely more complex and unreadable than simple text presented on a screen. And, you know, we get the service of, like, actually having visuals, which is nice, but it also does, in a strange way, overcomplicate it.
I mean, that's the decision that has to get made, like, obviously during development, is like where, like, you're making some form of concession by putting the 3D. Like, ironically, yeah, it is becoming like,
this is not northwest,
less obvious.
I want to go northwest, so to go northwest I have to travel southwest and then get turned around, or no, that's also not right. And this is the song and dance I am now doing every time I want to change rooms. This is northeast. It looked like I was going northeast at the end, but it was northwest because northwest was the exit out of the previous room.
You were going through.
It did change though. It started northwest and then curved the tunnel, which that's just bad layout on their part.
That's the point I'm trying to make, is that the geometry is fucked. The geometry lies to you. You can't trust the compass directions at all, because you could be going through one of these passages and then it'll curve at the last second, and suddenly what you thought was south is now southeast or southwest.
Yeah, but if you can infer from the map, like, okay, I know that this is the door that goes there, then regardless of,
but I can't do that without my fucking arrow pointing on it! I can't tell where I am in the room unless I have the fucking arrow there. That's the problem.
But the way that I'm looking at it is, I don't need to see there's an arrow. I know that's the corner of the room. I know where I'm standing, and I look at the map and I'm like, I know where I am. Like, that's part of, like, reading a map in real life too. In real life, you don't have an arrow constantly following you on your map.
But you're also not navigating rooms that are as obtuse in their geometry as this, with corners that you can't actually access and space on the map that's inaccessible, and oftentimes in circular rooms where without the benefit of the compass. Just tell me where to go. At this point, just tell me where to go. Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
I say this is dog shit design. You're clearly trying to make some sort of point that, you know, it's realistic in some sort of way. Fuck realism. It's a video game. Make it easy.
Well, okay, so that's the thing. I get Sharky's point. I think if the map was fully one-to-one, so it wasn't just room with connecting lines, I would agree more with Sharky. It's specifically seeing that path curve so that the direction you were moving halfway through changed.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would trip me up, because I would worry, wait, am I actually going in a northwest exit or a northeast exit?
Yes! That is the point I made. Yes.
But here's the thing. That instance of northwest, northeast, all that confusing you're saying, is not inherent in this game, actually. It's inherent because we're reading a guide that someone else wrote.
No, I'm skipping the guide. I'm not considering the guide, Sharky. I'm considering the idea of moving in compass directions relative to the map that is presented in the video game. If I want to go north, because I want to go to the Misty Cavern, but there's a second passage here that this twists and turns, and then suddenly I'm going down a path that I wasn't expecting to go down, that's in the game. That is pure game logic. That has nothing to do with the guide.
All right, well, again, the way I'm looking at it is I would look at the room. I would look at the orientation of the room. See, door. I'm relative to that door. Even if it twists, I know that is the door that I'm going through. I'm not even saying as necessarily like it's a more realistic thing, so it's better or anything like that. By the way, this is the section where you'd have to drop everything to go through.
I believe this is where we need to go. Yeah.
Yes.
Dwarfs, Ming. Grass land.
Whoops. Oh well.
I hope that's not a. I hope that's not a bad thing.
Are you kidding me? What?
I'm gonna do a quick look.
You could never put them together again.
Okay, I think you're fine. I think that was solely
Treasure that it could have redeemed
Treasure.
for score. And it's all because I was too lazy to turn around.
yeah.
Well, I'll live with that mistake. That's amusing at the very least. Let's hope I don't break my glass bottle, my fragile glass bottle.
Spelunking.
Yeah, I did a word search. There is a cushion you have to get so you can drop it without breaking it.
Okay.
It's very narrow, but try it. You may.
That's very funny knowing this was a VR game because, like, in theory, if it had the full control, you could have just gently put it down. But I'm getting the feeling the VR inputs are limited. Like, it's not full, like Half-Life Alyx style, like picking up everything and
here, the size of
manually moving it around.
Hey, it's dark in here. If only I had a fucking lantern.
Chamber lit by.
Well, that's the challenge, isn't it?
Check the map. Oh, wait. Where are you? You're there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd love to read it, but there's a fucking giant gem in the way of the description of the room,
But
and no way to zoom in.
That's what you need to pick up. It's in this room.
Yeah, I see it. I can grab it.
There you go.
So I think north. Can you go? Yeah.
I mean, it's pitch fucking dark.
Okay, so go back.
Likely fall into a pit.
So check the map now. I want to see something.
Egg-sized emerald.
Dark room. Is there a label on that room to the left? Oh wait, Plover is the room that you're in right now.
Yes, and I would love to tell you the description here, but where they decide to put the items is right on top of.
Okay, so don't go back yet.
Okay.
This is some classic adventure game bullshit, but you're gonna walk back and forth between dark room and this room.
It is now pitch dark. If you proceed, you will most likely fall into a pit.
You just keep doing that until something happens.
Yeah.
It is now pitch dark.
This is
If
classic
you're
adventure
trying to
bullshit.
explore beyond here, I can give you a hint, but it will cost you 5 points. If you want the hint,
You're
touch
doing the correct thing still.
But hurry before it disappears.
You know what? I want to see what the game says.
You're in the Plover room. There is a way to explore that region without having to worry about falling into a pit. None of the objects available are immediately useful for discovering the secret.
Which is to say that you just can't do like the dark pit room yet. What you're doing is it says you walking between the Plover room and the dark room until you hear the word Plover, with like you do with Plugh. And there's like a chance that it plays.
If you proceed, you will most likely fall into...
Oh, that's the random success thing they mentioned earlier. Okay.
You hear the call of a plover.
There.
I hear the call of a plover. Oh, yep. Okay, there we go.
There it is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You hear the
It took that long.
I can't do it yet.
You feel a
Wait,
strange
or you can.
sensation.
People in chat being like, what a well-spent 5 points.
Where are you? You might want to Plover back. 'Cause
It's too dark. You hear
now that you have Plover, you can go back through the crack and get all your shit.
Oh,
together.
yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
sensation.
And you don't need to use Plover, like, right now.
Right.
Okay, I'm assuming that a lot of these teleports, some of them are potentially optional, so maybe that's why it had the weird,
It's very narrow.
random
Try it.
solution.
Able to squeeze through.
Hey, I managed to pass through with the treasure in my pocket.
Egg-sized emerald.
And the lighting immediately changes now that I picked up the lantern again.
You could never put them together again.
Okay.
Empty bottle. Empty bottle.
I got an empty bottle. Game's not a
let me see.
5-bagger, I'll tell you that much for free.
Now would be the time, according to the guide, now would be the time to go drop off all your treasure by pluing back at Y2.
Very good. All
Exile.
1 gem. I guess I could have had that vase.
Yeah.
Also, when you go back to the well house, you can get more water.
Yes, that's true.
Egg-sized emerald.
Right, I have to keep checking this because I'm also directionally challenged, which also doesn't help with games like this and my enjoyment of them. Like at all.
Like, I think the critical thing I'm looking at when I'm examining your critiques and when I'm looking at the game and what I think of this here, what I'm seeing, I think a key thing is this is not a game for you. This is very much
No,
on
but this is
every
also
level.
a game for no one, according to the market. According to the law and reality of the market, this game was made for no one. That no one was asking for a remake of Colossal Cave in the year 2023.
It was made for Ken Williams.
No, it wasn't even, because Roberta swooped in and said, "No, you're making this for."
I guess it was made for Roberta Williams.
Specifically, it was made for Roberta Williams' ego and legacy and whatnot.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's just, I mean, I know how I feel about it. I fucking don't like it. I think it's completely unnecessary. I think you would get more value out of using your imagination and playing the original goddamn Colossal Cave, some version of that.
You feel a strain.
If you want to appreciate it from a historical perspective, I think this game shits on it. I think that if your goal as a player, as someone who is here to appreciate games history, is to say, I want to experience Colossal Cave Adventure, presenting someone with this would be disingenuous and mean, because this ain't fucking Colossal Cave Adventure. This is a clumsy point-and-click wrapper with bad graphics on top of the game logic that obfuscates the original game logic by wrong-headed attempts to modernize it in the sense that it is a graphical presentation, but also incredibly regressive in the way it hides prompts and mechanics and confuses your sense of direction. And also, you can make an argument that it spoils the sense of creativity. I compliment, the interpretation of things by the team of artists trying to breathe life into these rooms and whatnot. But at the same time, it denies you the ability, it denies you the original intention of the author, which is to fucking visualize the game yourself, to draw your own pictures in your head. So I think in that sense, objectively, this is a game for no one. Objectively, I think this is a game that does not fulfill its purpose as purported to be.
Also, do you want to call it here? Because we're at like 10:30, or we're at my time is 10:36.
Yeah, we probably should.
You're back in.
This would also be a good time to stop and have some good orientation of where we are for the next time we come back.
We'll know that we're in the Plugh room, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to put a key phrase for us that's from the guide.
Oh?
That is the next key section, because all the stuff with the pillow, that's for the vase, which we've
already
broken,
blown that.
so we don't have to worry about that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, I saved. Let's quit the game. Game over. You scored 125 points out of a possible 350 using 364 turns. You have achieved the rating of Experienced Adventurer. To achieve the next rating higher, you need 6 more points. So it literally assumes that you're ending the game, that you're choosing to end the game by exiting the game.
I
assume that's how it was in the original.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my guess too.
Yeah. But it's just very strange to see it translated in that way here. Well, I'll exit the game then. Goodbye, game. Until next week.
See you next week.
And let's pop up on here. So, I feel like I got my initial impressions on the record there. But I want to hear from you two real quick, before we wrap this one up. Let's start with Johnny. Let's start with Johnny on this one.
Okay. So my initial impressions is this game feels a bit conflicted to me because it feels like a reinterpretation of this, like old text adventure game and doing new things to it, but at the same time keeping so much of its fundamental design and structure, and those two ideas seem at odds with each other to me. It's like, yeah, like, because you can just do visuals on top of text adventures. There are a lot of text adventures that would get visual upgrades where it's like, oh yeah, here's a version where we rendered pictures to go with each room. But this is more than that. This is realizing that as an actual 3D space you move around, but it doesn't feel like the design flow is built with that in mind. It feels like it's still mostly rooted in the text adventure basis. And this is the whole thing when it comes to readapting video games, is you have to make the decision, are you trying to give the original experience, or are you trying to do something new with the source material? And yeah, it just feels like they didn't decide on either. Like
Split the difference.
Yeah, too married to the original idea, while also this new part. Again, I do want to know more about how this works in VR, but looking at it, I don't get the impression that it would have, say, again, like picking up most of the objects and interacting with stuff that way. I get the impression that it probably, it almost would work like early VR stuff where you were just foot planted, just you could also move around as opposed to foot planted.
I can try to give you some idea of that by next week,
Yeah.
hopefully. I'll try to free trial on my Quest.
Yeah. That would be interesting to know more about. I will say some positives. Like, yeah, it is interesting to see what the developers did come up with. The graphical quality is mostly bad, but there's some rooms that just like artistically is like, okay, yeah, this is a fun thing to look at, and looking at it in the pure sense of the way the game was made by Willie, the cave exploration sense. Some of that is cool, and I do like that in video games as a, like I think like Shadow Colossus, where so much of that map is just to experience, to see, and there's some of that there. Not always, like that dead end part. There wasn't anything really visually exciting there, so they're not doing it all the time, but sometimes. But yeah, like the presentation is very mixed, even the sound effects as well. Like some of the very like public domainy sound effects, like the glockenspiel one and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, you just found an audio library and were just picking out stuff as opposed to building around the game. Same with some of the other audio and musical cues. But yeah, like, as I mentioned, I'm the one who has most of their history in more the point and click stuff. Like that's the adventure games that I would gel with, and this wouldn't be satisfying me because it still has a lot of that text-based adventure design around it. So I get your point, Cass, about this not being for anyone, because yeah, it's like both ideas are pulling against each other. Hopefully the game can turn it around though. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Sharky.
So where do I start? I'll start with some kind of more clear negatives, which is it does have a cheap kind of look and feel to it, and sound to it as well. So some parts are all right, some parts are kind of nice, but it does seem done on. I don't want to say done on a budget, but parts of it do kind of look. Yeah, I guess cheap is the word I'm looking for. There are things in which it is. I think Cass is right that there are ways that it could have shook hands more with the more modern amenities or more modern things it's trying to do, like having more points of interaction and looking at things, or having the area tell you more things. Like I get the impression that they're trying to stick very closely to the original script. into the original text and not adding new words in there, except for Roberta Williams's words in that television set.
Yeah.
But I think they could have done more to have like bespoke narrator lines for objects in the environment that they have added there, even if it's just a tiny bit of flavor, or if something is there that is kind of a hint, but like kind of a less obvious one, maybe just point out that you see the wisp fly down into the stream, and like point out that like, yeah, that's a little bit more important. By the way, if we're pointing stuff out to you, I should probably maybe point that out. That could have been something they could have done. But I'm looking at the general kind of like flow of the game, the old trappings of text adventures that they're doing in terms of some of the puzzles, like having a 50% chance of learning a spell when you walk in and out of a room, not having an arrow on the map telling you where to go. I will say having the compass up top really is nice, though. That is a very good. Like, I'm glad they added that.
Fucking theoretically,
just from a convenience sake. That was nice. And the way they did other stuff in this game, I could see them not doing that. I could have easily seen them not including that compass. But I'm looking at it. I'm looking at this as like, there's very obviously like a clear intent into the choices they made. Like not having an arrow on the map saying where you are looking or where you're going or something like that, or not having something in the environment saying this is the exit of this thing. That none of that reaches accidental to me. That all reaches like they had a very clear idea of like how much information do we want to convey to the player through like user interface, and how much do we want them to infer from looking at the environment or from examining and like looking at different things. And I'm seeing that as like, yeah, okay, this is the rules the game is playing by, and that's, to me, that's fine. That's how the game wants to be. That's how the game is. It is still, in my mind, functional by its own rules. It doesn't seem anywhere particularly broken to me. I see why people wouldn't like that. I see the kind of person who like, because I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I would poke around at this. I'm not sure if I would finish it, but I would poke around this and like kind of pick up what it's putting down for a bit. But I don't think it's for no one, but I think it's for an extremely small audience. I think the audience that is there for this, especially in the 2021, is very, 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 very small. And I also think that's okay. I think they have enough fucking money to go around if they want to do their vanity project and be like, we're making a game because Roberta Williams wanted to have legacy. Like, fuck it, whatever. So, like, who wants to play this? I don't know. Whatever. Sure, it exists. It can sit there. It can exist. Maybe someone will like it. Maybe someone will dig it. It's fine. It's, to me, thus far, I completely understand anyone being like, I don't want to play this. This does not appeal to me in any sort of like modern sense. The choices they have made, I feel like, you know, someone could say like, I feel like we have gone past this. And I even see the point of view of like, it's mixing two things into this weird chimera that doesn't meet necessarily in a harmonious way. Like, yeah, I see where there are flaws here. There are definitely flaws here where both of those things are not gelling together entirely. But on the whole, I think this is fine. Not great. Maybe not even particularly good, but just it's there. This feels, thus far, this feels like a 5 out of 10 to me. Maybe it's like a 4.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards like 2 out of 5. Like, to be clear, as frustrated as I am with elements of navigation, as antiquated and useless as I think that it is, and not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but I just want to like also like, you know, point out that I'm not just like, you know, like 1 out of 5ing this right out the gate, 0 out of 5ing it, being like null, void, pointless shit. I'm just being like, wow, this sure doesn't need to exist. It's novel, and I get why it exists, and I can see the imaginary person they thought they were making it for, but I'm just not convinced that person exists. I'm not convinced that the person that we're both like trying to imagine here actually exists in the world, and the market reality proved that reality that no one bought this. So,
Yeah, like you can't deny that this did not appeal to many people at all. Like I'm sure there's some people out there who did like come away from this feeling like, yeah. And I can see myself being a person who looks at this and is like, it's all right. I played it for a while. Like, hypothetically, if I were to play it, I'd probably be like, yeah, I played it for a while. I messed around with it, and then I kind of bounced off. But yeah, it's just doesn't strike me as anything particularly. God, this is not the word I want to use.
it is not harmonious.
That's true, but it's also not anything particularly special.
Yes, and also just a reminder: $40.
Yeah, that's expensive. That's a lot. I will say that they did lower the price eventually, but $40 is kind of a high. I understand maybe in the VR market where games tend to be a bit higher priced because of all that stuff. But
I will mention that one review that was specific to the VR version was like, you could get Resident Evil 4 for this price. There's stuff on the store that's cheaper, that's better than this. So at least that VR focused person did also think the price point was too
egregious.
Much.
Yes.
Yep, but I also get that things are overpriced in VR regardless. But $40 I think still is too much in general.
All right, and I'll spare. I think I gave enough running commentary tonight that I don't need to necessarily present my thoughts again right here. We'll just wrap it up for now. But yeah, I think we'll hopefully finish this in a second episode. If not, I can't see it going way past the third, right? We can always pick up the pace. We can always just follow the critical path if we want to like rush to get it done past a certain point. So we will see this through the conclusion. Yeah.
I feel like in an hour and a half, we may have done like a third-ish of the game.
Mm-hmm.
When you consider that the first 2 hours of this episode were just recorded history, then yeah. Well, we're probably on a fine pace to finish this next episode. So we do hope that folk will tune in for the next episode. If you're listening to this right now, please come back for part 2. But for now, I say, Xyzzy. Folks, thank you for tuning into this, the first episode of our playthrough of 2023's Colossal Cave, as reimagined, re-envisioned, re-wizarded, what did will.i.am say when he recombobulated the Entertainment Tonight theme or whatever? He come up with like 20 like fake words for just remix. Anyway, Roberta Williams and Ken Williams' variation version of Colossal Cave. Thank you for tuning in, sitting through that history section. We hope you found the history section interesting. I sure did. We hope that we weren't unduly hard on the Williamses. I think we were appropriately hard on them for decisions they made and things that they said. I'm sure folk will let us know how they feel about that in the comments at all. Again, this was a patron-voted playthrough. We thank people for choosing it. We hope we are satisfying them by committing to playing it and providing that history section and the playthrough to follow and so forth. We hope this is what you wanted. And we hope you'll tune in to some of our upcoming programs. Why won't you? Why don't you? Let's see here. Saturday, we'll be coming back at you with a Bad Game Chance Time, the show in which spinning blocks determine what games we play and who is stuck playing them, so on and so forth. An absolutely miserable time had by me, but everyone else seems to enjoy it. So please consider tuning in to that for a fun time. Monday, March 30th, Casual Mondays. As every Monday is a Casual Monday, the show where we play not so bad games, shoot the shit, so on, so forth. Usually our funnest show since we're not actively torturing ourselves. So definitely consider tuning in to see that one live or catching the VODs, which go up on the Patreon for the benefit of our Pluging members currently. Tuesday, March 31st, still pending on the old calendar. Still got to come up with something. But it's always something here at the Bad Game Hall of Fame. We're always putting on some sort of show, some way, somehow. Then you can join us here on April 2nd, Thursday, April 2nd, for episode 2 of Colossal Cave, the continuation of this playthrough a week from now. Hey, we hope you like what you saw here tonight. We know we got some people who got gift subbed. Why don't you go on and take that gift sub on over to our Discord server if you're not already a member. A community of connoisseurs. Talk good games, bad games, every game between, things that aren't games. But if you really must talk about games, we got a bad game club too, wherein you can commiserate with folk over the bad game of the month, which this month has been Castlevania for the N64. Coming to a close. We'll have a new game up for the month of April. But folk have definitely been playing through the Castlevania and sharing their thoughts, their tips, their tricks, and so on and so forth. It's a good way to share your thoughts and sort of have a community playthrough going for these bad games we pick out for the club. So please to consider joining for that, or for any other reason you want to join the Discord server. And one of the best reasons, if you are someone who happens to have a active subscription, if you happen to pledge on Patreon, subscribe on Twitch, or are a member on YouTube, any or all of the above there will grant you access on the Discord to a Patron Saints channel over yonder, wherein you can vote in polls the likes of which determine that we played Colossal Cave tonight and next week, make suggestions to help steer the direction of the show, gain access to exclusive content primarily by way of VODs, but always working on broadening those offerings, and also just know that we see ya, we know ya, we appreciate ya, we thank ya for keeping help and keep even the lights on here in the cave, the endless dark cavern that is the Bad Game Hall of Fame. You bring a little light into our lives. You're lowering a little lantern down for us by financially supporting us, and we thank you for that. But if you can't financially support us, we also completely understand. We can't all be Roberta and Ken Williams. We can't all be sleeping on beds of money. If you're still looking for a way to help the channel out, you might consider going over to our YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/@badgamehallofFame, where we have a suggested viewing playlist. 20 handpicked episodes that we think make for some of the best onboarding onto this here show of ours. Fit for sharing with folk who you think might go for 3 to 4 hour video game streams, highly produced, meticulously crafted, well-researched video game stream VODs. Maybe you know someone who is a big fan of the classic adventure game era, who you want to kill by making them sit through the intro to this one and hear all their favorite games slandered by us. Or maybe you just know someone who wants a general course, a 101 course on classic adventure game history. I hope we provided that and told them whose games to look into, who's worth looking further into, and who's probably should be avoided. So we'll leave it to your discretion, dear viewer. With all that being said, we're going to draw the show to a close. I'm going to see who's playing what on the twitch.tv real quick like. Macaw45, their stream is currently titled, "This game is literally called bad." So,
well, there you go.
I guess I've got to know what the hell that is. It's kind of
the Hall of Fame,
part of our brand. So please let them know the Bad Game Hall of Fame sent you. And yeah, I'm curious as hell to see what the fuck this is. So we'll see you on over there. Thank you one more time for tuning into this, to our goofy stream, to our goofy 2 hours of history followed by an hour and a half of walking around in circles in a dark cave that has been this playthrough so far. We are the Bad Game Hall of Fame. That's the three of us in the background. I accidentally docked us with this image in the background. I apologize for that. I have been Colossal Cassidy.
I've been Cave Charky.
And I couldn't put it better myself, Johnny Backhead.
Very good. And for now, bye.
Good night, everybody.
Toodles!
Watch, I'm gonna cast Xyzzy.